The NFL draft, it is finally here. It is draft day, my friends. What is going on? This is the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app, and, of course, the live video stream, which you can get at 97.3ESPN.com through Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. We are finally at the NFL draft. It's a mock draft-a-thon. Everybody's final mock drafts are out. I don't do the mock draft because I have fun reading others' mock drafts. You don't need to see my mock draft. I tell you every day verbally what my mock draft is. You want me to tell you who's going number one? I won't get that wrong. Trevor Lawrence. Boom. I'm 1 for 1. Well, who's going to go 12? Well, we'll try to figure that out throughout the course of the day. How's everybody feeling? I'm your host, Mike Gill. Josh Jennings producing today's show. You out there, Draft Day Thursday. Now, speaking of Draft Day, are you a fan of the movie Draft Day? Did you like the movie Draft Day? You're saying yes. There's a lot of people out there that didn't like the movie. Like, what was it they didn't like about it? Did you like it wasn't really realistic, some of the stuff that went on in the movie, but it was just like you're a fan of the movie.
I'm a fan of the movie because when I go into movies, I understand it's a fictional story, so I didn't take it hyper seriously like some people do. You always talked about how, I can be literal, but not that literal sometimes. You don't take a movie that's fictional about the draft literally. People were like, well, that would never happen. And I'm just like, well, yeah, because it's a Kevin Costner movie. Come on.
I mean, I liked it just because it's, I didn't buy a couple of things.
It's a fun
Dennis
movie.
Leary, I did not buy as the coach.
To me, that's one of the most hysterical parts of it, is the fact that you literally cast the last person I would ever cast for that role.
Yeah, I thought he did a terrible job as the coach. I did not buy Dennis Leary as the coach at all.
I totally thought Kevin Costner as GM, though.
Kevin Costner was good as the GM because the GM feels like a very has self-confidence issues because everyone's always questioning him. So yeah, I bought that. Dennis Leary as the coach, I didn't buy at all. Like the guy who plays Art Howe in Moneyball, Philip Seymour Hoffman, yeah. I bought him as the manager, like this old curmudgeon-y guy who's just stuck in these old baseball ways. I bought that, although apparently they did not portray Art Howe very well. Art Howe was not thrilled. Right. He was not happy with the way he was portrayed in the movie. But Dennis Leary did not come off to me as an NFL head football coach.
Now, did you recognize any of the other actors in the movie without having looked them up?
Yeah, I mean, Jennifer Garner was, in fact, a couple of years ago, we did Radio Row in New York when the Super Bowl was there, and that was the year Draft Day came out, and Kevin Costner and Jennifer Garner were both on Radio Row doing interviews. We tried to get both of them on the show. Garner we had closer than Costner. She was like at the table over from us, and we were trying to get her to come up. But you know those things. They are so like booked to a time, to a place. You can't just like, hey, do you have time to come here? No, I don't. I'm going to that table over there because I'm booked for the next 8 minutes.
Right.
So Jennifer Garner was, I don't know what the role of that person is in real life, but I can tell you that
capologist.
Yeah, but I'm saying I don't know, you don't see those people too much.
Right. Well, for example, in the Eagles situation, the capologist is also the GM in the Eagles case.
Yeah. But Dennis Leary as the coach was poorly casted, I thought.
I love the fact that that was Chadwick Boseman, by the way. That was the linebacker.
Okay.
He's the guy who plays Black Panther in the Black Panther movies.
Gotcha. Did you think Al Pacino did a good job in Any Given Sunday?
No.
Do you buy him as a football coach?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think he was very good either.
By the way, also, for those who don't know, Mike and I had a random conversation off the air about a couple different things. The guy who plays the incumbent quarterback who gets mad about them particularly drafting a quarterback, that's Tom Welling. And Tom Welling is from Smallville.
Okay, so I was going to say, I didn't talk about Tom Welling, but I brought up Smallville today.
Yes.
Because I asked you who sang the song. How about this? We have a pair of Flyers tickets, right? Don't we have a pair of Flyers tickets for
Flyers tickets for Saturday.
Saturday's game?
Devils, yeah.
So I said to Josh, who sung the song, the theme song for Smallville?
Right.
And I knew the answer. I was singing it in here earlier, and I said Smallville. I don't know how it came up. I forget.
First of all, I was impressed that you remembered Smallville.
Well, because in my former life when I did rock, alternative rock music radio, that song was just coming out.
Okay.
So I would be the guy like, coming up next, we're playing this band. The song is called, I don't want to say it because they don't give it away.
Right.
But I said it, and then I said Smallville, and you were impressed by that. And then I said, all right, Josh, well, who sung the song?
And I completely drew a blank.
Yeah, well, I said it, and it didn't hit you.
Yeah, it didn't hit me the way I thought it would.
No.
But I could probably sing the entire song.
So if anybody knows the song, who's the song and who's the artist?
Yes, they have to get the song and the artist.
Yeah, you have to get the song
the artist
and the artist.
Is the real linchpin.
Now, you didn't even fact check me.
I checked later.
Was that right?
Yeah.
Oh, just making sure. So if you know the artist and the song to Smallville, send me a text, 609-403-0973, and we'll hook you up with a 4-pack of tickets to Saturday's Flyers game. Simple as that.
Love it.
How easy is that?
I also wonder how many people.
Well, it's not easy if you don't know it.
I also wonder how many people listening actually watch Smallville.
I didn't see one episode.
But you knew the song.
But I knew the song because that was the song and that band, I believe, put out that song and that song only.
They were a one-hit wonder for sure.
And that's not even that big of a hit. It's only a hit because it was the song for Smallville.
And it played on every episode for 10 seasons.
Yeah. So if you know who the song is and the band and you want to go to the Flyers game, just text the band and the song, 609-403-0973. Who they play? Jersey on Saturday.
Yep.
And then the Penguins on Monday and Tuesday, and then essentially they are playing out the string. I mean, they are pretty much out of this, but if you want to go up to the game.
Hey, you get to watch all the young guys like Zamula, Jackson Cates, Wade Allison. The future of the team is now.
Yeah, all right. Well, no Carter Hart. He's been put on the shelf for the rest of the year. Out for the rest of the season. All right, so let's get into the draft and break this down. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. It's like mock draft mania, right? Everybody's got their final mock drafts. We have them up at 973ESPN.com. We have like a draft day mock draft tracker. So we basically went to like all of the heavy hitters when it comes to the draft world. So let me roll through what the different mock drafts have for the Philadelphia Eagles at number 12. Todd McShay of ESPN has the Eagles going with Devonta Smith, the wide receiver from Alabama. I don't have a problem with that. Like all the picks in these mock drafts, I'll tell you whether I have a problem if they end up with this guy or not. And it tells me that moving back to 12 was a good decision because I don't have a problem getting Devonta Smith. Mel Kiper Jr. has the Eagles taking J.C. Horn at 12. I don't have a problem with that. Chris Trapasso from CBS Sports has the Eagles taking Patrick Surtain Jr. The second from Alabama. I don't have a problem with that. Pete Prisco from CBS Sports has them taking J.C. Horn. I don't have a problem with that. Pete Schrager, NFL Network, has them trading up to number 7 to take Patrick Surtain. I think I would have a problem with that. If I think I can get J.C. Horn at 12, I might as well just stay 12. Why am I going to give up assets? Unless I really, really, really think Patrick Surtain is the way better player. Now, Peter Schrager was the guy in his last mock draft that had the Eagles moving back to take an offensive lineman. He had him taking Rashawn Slater. Now he has him trading up to go take Patrick Surtain the second. And he writes, the Lions want to trade back badly. So the Lions want to get out of 7. I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles move up to 7, knowing that Detroit wants to get out of there. I wouldn't be shocked at all. The question would be, would he actually trade up and take a quarterback? Would he actually trade up and take Fields if Fields ended up slipping to number 7? That is a little bit of a concern for me. That worries me just a tad. All right, so let's continue to look through the mock draft. Daniel Jeremiah, NFL Network. Devonta Smith, Alabama. Charlie Casserly, NFL Network. J.C. Horn. Lance Zierlein, NFL Network. He's the guy who got Jalen Reagor to the Eagles last year, right? He has J.C. Horn, South Carolina. So I have no problem with Horn, Smith, Patrick Surtain. I don't want to trade up if I don't have to get Patrick Surtain. I'd rather just stay where I am and take either Horn or Surtain. All right, 609-403-0973. I do see a couple people that have gotten this right on the text board. All right, so we'll announce our winner coming up here in just a little bit, right after our opening segment. All right, so there are the mock drafts that we kind of zoned in on. And all of those scenarios I have no problem with. I have no problem with any of the guys that were picked. None. The only guy I would have a big problem with is if they traded up or stayed at 12 and took a quarterback. I do not need to see them draft a quarterback at number 12. Harris chimes in. Hey, Mike, do you think the Eagles will trade Ward if we get Waddle Smith because they can play the X and the slot? Well, you're getting Waddle and Smith, or you're saying Waddle or Smith? I'm imagining or because you're not getting both. Do I think they'll trade Ward? No, I don't think Ward has a lot of value. I mean, yeah, if they trade him, what are you going to get? A 7th-round pick? Maybe. No, if anything, Harris, I think the Eagles keep Ward and make a trade for another. We talked about it yesterday. Anthony Miller from Chicago, the wide receiver. Don't be surprised if they get a veteran kind of like what they did last year when they went out and got Marquise Goodwin, a veteran speedster. I think they want to try to – I don't think they want to draft a receiver. I might be way off on this, but I don't think they want to draft a receiver. I think the Eagles are looking to go defense in the early rounds because they have wide receivers on this team. Now, I know everybody watching this show or listening to this show, you guys feel that the Eagles receivers stink and that they need help there. And I'm telling you, I believe that they feel that they drafted Jalen Reagor and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside and that those guys can play and that the Eagles coaching staff didn't do a good enough job with those guys. So they don't need to spend high draft capital. Not to mention, they have John Hightower and they have Quez Watkins and they have Greg Ward and they have Travis Fulgham. Those are guys that I believe the Eagles feel they can win with. So that's just one mindset here, is that they like their receivers better than you do. Doesn't mean they're right. Just trying to get inside the mind of draft day. Why am I going to do it number 12? I'm not going to take a receiver. I already like my receivers. I took a receiver in the first round last year. Do you think Howie Roseman wants to kind of admit that he made a mistake? Probably not. So what do? I drafted a wide receiver last year. I drafted a wide receiver the second round the year before. So am I going to take another receiver? Probably not. 609-403-0973. Christopher is watching on YouTube. Hi, Chris. He says, I really think Parsons is a Lawrence Taylor type talent. Do you think we can move back into the top 10? Well, yes. I want to stop right there. Can the Eagles move into the top 10? Yes. They have the ammunition to do it. This is why the trade from 6 to 12 was a very good deal for them. I keep seeing people complain that they moved from 6 to 12. I don't understand what kind of lives you lead. I really don't. Like, take me in your mindset. Why? They got an extra first-round pick next year. I could still get back into the top 10 if I won. I get it. You wanted to stay at 6 and you wanted to get Jamar Chase. You weren't getting Pitts most likely. So if you want to get Pitts, you're not moving back into the top 10 for Pitts. I mean, you're not getting him at 6. So it's Jamar Chase or bust. So you move back, and now you can move back into the top 10 if you want. You move back to 12 to get a first-round pick next year. Are you not comprehending that? Like, I'm having a hard time with that. 609-403-0973. Anybody who tells me they don't like the trade, I just don't understand. I'm pretty sure they don't understand the trade. That's what I would say. I would say, do you not understand the trade? Right? They got a first-round pick next year. Do you not get that? So it almost makes me like speechless when I hear people that don't like the trade. Jeff's watching. What's up, Jeff? If the Eagles don't get Pitts, Horn, or Surtain with the 12th pick, who would you want the Eagles to get? All right, that's a fair question. They don't get Pitts, they're not going to. They could get Horn or Surtain. I don't know why they couldn't get one or the other, but I'll play your game and give you somebody that I would want in that spot. How about Waddle? How about Smith? You said if they don't get Pitts, Horn, or Surtain at 12, who would you want? I'll take Waddle or Smith. If those three guys are all gone, Waddle and Smith, one of them would have to be there, I would imagine. I'll take one of those. I'll play that game. Those guys are gone. I'll take the wide out in that case. Look, I don't feel like they can neglect wide receiver, but I would rather go corner at 12. Uzi Wolf. What's up, Uzi Wolf? I like that name. He's watching on YouTube. A lot of people watching the show in the early portion of the day today. What's up, everybody watching the show? If you're listening out there, what are you waiting for? Jump on your phone, get in the live video. If you're watching, keep your messages coming. I'll continue to answer them throughout the show. We got great guests today. Ryan Roberts, NFL draft expert, in about 6 minutes. Jeff Kerr later on. Mike, I think Rieger will be really good. I think he's going to be fine. I don't think Rieger's a bust by any stretch of the imagination. I think he's a guy that's a big playmaker. I think Sirianni will get the best out of Rieger. I think you're going to get an offense designed with Rieger in mind, with these guys' skill sets in mind. That's the one thing I like. I thought Peterson did a poor job with Rieger. I thought he did a poor job with the younger players. I thought he did a poor job with like J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. I don't think he gave him much of a chance. But I'm surprised, this is from Uzi Wolf, I'm surprised how many fans on Reddit and Twitter, jeez, this is a cesspool of information, Reddit and Twitter, think Fulgham has just as much of a shot as Reagor does of being great. No, I don't think that Fulgham, I don't think Fulgham's much more than just a guy. He had a great flash. I hope Sirianni can get something out of him. The kid was a 6th-round pick. There's a reason for that. But I think Rieger's got more upside than Fulgham. That's not saying a whole heck of a lot. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. We are just starting out on a Thursday edition. It is draft day. Ryan Roberts, draft expert, going to join us on the other side. He has his mock draft. His final mock is up. We'll go through it, the scenarios, and more coming up next. Don't go away. This is the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. It's brought to you by your Delaware Valley Acura dealers for great deals on Acura's award-winning lineup. Shop online at DelValAcuraDealers.com. All right, Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN Draft Day is here. We've got plenty of coverage. Ryan Roberts up next. NFL draft coverage on the Sports Bash is brought to you by GMS Law. Make the right call. GMS Law, 4 convenience locations to serve you online, gmslaw.com. Got a quick text. I'll ask Ryan this question and let him kind of answer it, but I think we'll have the same answer here. Got a lot of questions from you guys. If you want a question for Ryan, send it in now. 609-403-0973 on the text board. If you're watching the live video, pop it up on the screen, and we'll ask Ryan your draft questions as Ryan Roberts, Coast to Coast Scouting, Believe in the NFL Draft podcast, joins me now here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Ryan, happy draft day, man.
Happy draft day, Mike. Appreciate you having me on again.
Absolutely. Great information. We're getting great feedback from the listeners. They've been popping questions in throughout the show today. So let's start with some of the questions from our listeners. First one, what are the rumors? There's rumors that the Eagles want to move into the top 10. What would it cost to go from 12 back into, say, 7, 8, 9?
It's not a drastic move. That's only up 4 to 5 spots, and you still have a good value anyway for a team trading back. 12th overall pick is still a high priority one. So I don't think it would be crazy. I think that it would probably be obviously a swap and then just a day 2 pick. For only 4 or 5 spots. It's not a crazy jump, so I don't think it would cost you anything ridiculous as far as what the compensation would be.
So you're talking like if I'm Philly and I think Detroit wants to get out of 7, am I giving them one of my thirds?
I think probably more likely a second. So maybe swapping the first and then a second this year, or unless you want to try to finagle them and say, hey, we'll give you a 4th this year and then we'll give you a 2nd rounder next year, so you can kind of delay the draft capital. But I think that it can be done relatively inexpensively because, again, that's not a huge jump, and it's not like the Eagles have it's not like they're the Washington football team at 19 or the Chicago Bears at 20. It's not a crazy trade back option.
This one is Parsons. This one's from Philip, who's watching on Facebook. Is Parsons really going to drop? How far do you see Micah Parsons dropping?
I think his bubble is. I think it starts at 9. I know some people that I talk to that have experience in scouting departments in the NFL are saying that he could come off at 6, which would be surprising to me if the Dolphins did make that decision. I think the Denver Broncos at 9, although I don't think that Teddy Bridgewater necessarily eliminates the quarterback potentially. If they are just like, okay, we're going to stick with Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater for a year, let's get who we perceive to be the best football player on the board. I think 9 is where the conversation begins. I think if he lands to the Giants, even though I talked about the Eagles having this long string of not drafting a linebacker in the first round since 1979. Well, they haven't drafted a linebacker since I think it was 1984 with Carl Banks. So they've been in a long drought as well. But I really do think that it makes a ton of sense at 11 for the Giants. And then, we talked about the Eagles. I don't think it's going to happen, but if you are at 12 and you take a guy like Michael Parsons, I think it's great value. And I think it's what the Eagles need. They haven't had a dynamic second-level defender in quite some time now. I mean, probably since Jeremiah Trotter, right? Like we just had, I know Jordan Hicks was like a solid football player, but like he was just often injured and all that good stuff. So I do think that the window starts at 9. The floor, I believe, is the Las Vegas Raiders at 17. I would be very surprised if he drops any further than that. I think that's kind of the window for him.
All right. At 12, how many quarterbacks will be on the board when that selection is up?
So I think there will be 4 off the board and 1 available. The question is, how much is the Mac Jones love really prevalent in the NFL, or is it just, a Kyle Shanahan love affair with him, which is kind of magnifying it for some people? I think that either him or Justin Fields could be on the board at 12. I don't think it will be both. I think we're going to see 4 at least drafted in the top 10. And then depending on if a team wants to trade up for the 5th, we could be seeing, a record-setting year for quarterbacks. But I do think that there will possibly be one of those guys. I'm just, to be completely honest and completely transparent, I'm not 100% sure which one it will be.
All right, let's take a look at Ryan Roberts at Rise and Draft, the letter N, Rise and Draft. Follow him on Twitter. You get his full mock draft. It's out today. So this is what you would do as the GM of these particular teams. So you have Trevor Lawrence going 1. You say the Jets should take Lance. Do you think they will do that?
I do not. I think it's a foregone conclusion that the New York Jets are going to take Zach Wilson. But so I did put the predictive side of the mock in there as well. So I do think that it is going to be Zach Wilson. But if I personally was on the board, I do value Lance over a guy like a Zach Wilson.
All right. Now you have Fields going 3rd. Do you think they will do Fields or Jones?
I actually don't think it's going to be either. I think since Zach Wilson is going to be the second off the board, the predictive side of the mock is really where this lies. I think that it's going to be Trey Lance. I've been very vocal about this over the last couple of weeks. If you're a betting guy and that follows the movement in Vegas, there was a big swing today in favor of Trey Lance because Mac Jones has been the assumed guy and has been the betting favorite for a while. And on a couple outlets, Trey Lance is now the favorite, or at least closing the gap tremendously. So I do 100% believe that it is Trey Lance. It could be Mac, but I have a really good feeling about this one.
All right. What is, in your mind, the big difference in one of these quarterbacks over the other that you might like one over the other? Like, the two wideouts, for instance, Waddle and Smith. It's really like what does your franchise need? Do you need the speed guy? Do you need the route runner? Do you need so what separates any of these quarterbacks to make one better than the other for you?
I think so. Like starting at top with Trevor Lawrence, obviously the top guy in this class. It's the fact of what guys talk about checking off boxes, and for Trevor Lawrence, from a physical perspective, he checks everything off. But I think what separates him is he's just been productive at every step. He just wins football games, which a lot of people obviously value at the quarterback position. And then he's a 21-year-old kid that is already married. When the movements were happening this past year, he was helping to rally people. Like he just seems like such a good character young man. Graduated in 3 years. Like it's hard to find a hole other than, he weighed in at his pro day of 213 pounds. Like he was a little skinny, obviously, but it's just hard to poke holes in him. And then for me, the next two guys are Trey Lance and Justin Fields. And I think it's a fascinating conversation because both of them physically are pretty similar. Lance is a little bit taller. He's a little over 6'3". Fields is a little over 6'2", but they're both very well put together, physical runners, athletic, both have strong arms. What separates it from me for Trey Lance is I think that he layers the ball better to multiple levels of the field, meaning that I think that he changes arm speeds, he throws with touch. I think he's just a more natural thrower of the football. Justin Fields, for me, people have thrown out comparisons to Cam Newton, which I think are really apt comparisons. I think it makes total sense. He's a little mechanical in some worlds, but I do think that he can be successful in the right situation. But I'm just kind of buying into the more natural thrower, especially when physically I think they're so similar athletically. And then after that, it's Zach Wilson is the next tier for me. I was very hesitant on Zach Wilson. I've been very transparent with that. When he started to have his rise and people were talking about, this guy might be the second quarterback off the board. I haven't watched him in depth yet. I'd only seen him on TV. So I sat down and I watched him, and I get it. I totally get it. Because with where the NFL is going, off script, working the RPOs where you have to make quick decisions and throw from awkward angles and all that good stuff, I get it. He hits that stuff. He had a great season. He's a good athlete. For me, there's just an inconsistency with him, especially from a technical side. His upper body, lower body just becomes so disconnected. And I know obviously that is a thing that you must do when you're throwing off script, but I worry about him on script sometimes. I think that he is very hesitant to just pull the trigger at times and play hero ball a little too much, which is a little bit scary. And then, then you're getting into the next tiers of Mac Jones and Davis Mills and all those good guys. But for me, it is the top four at top are, very well above everybody else. It's just different tiers. And then we have a drastic drop off after quarterback 4. All
right. Ryan Roberts, Rise and Draft is where you can follow him on Twitter. Coast to Coast Scouting, Believe in the NFL Draft Prospects podcast. Let me ask you, if you match up Jalen Hurts next to this crew of quarterbacks, Is he better than any of them? Not as good as any of them? Would he be the sixth guy? How would you kind of, put Hurts into this group?
He would be my fifth ranked guy. Looking back on the grades that I did hand out to him, I was a little lukewarm, to be honest, on a guy like Jalen Hurts. I think that he is really sound character, hard worker, very good athlete. I just think it's sort of the issues that I mentioned with Fields. He's a little mechanical. He's not great on timing routes. It seems like his process is a little slow. So I was a little more hesitant just because I think there might be a little bit of a cap on how effective he could be as a passer. But I would definitely prefer him to a guy like a Mac Jones. So he would be quarterback 5. And I think that just speaks a little bit to the fact of like, hey, last year Jalen Hurts was a second-round pick. And obviously, it seems like he is the guy for Philadelphia, at least in the short term here, moving forward to see what he has. And I think it speaks volumes that we have 4 guys, legitimate guys in this class that have pretty substantially higher grades for me in the 2021 class. I think that really just shows how special this class potentially could be up top if everybody hits.
All right. At number 4, you go Kyle Pitts by Atlanta. I know you said no trades. Do you think it's more likely they take Pitts or trade or somebody else?
I would be shocked maybe shocked not the right word. I'd be very surprised if Atlanta was picking at 4 tonight. I think that if they stood there and either take the best quarterback available if they like him, because you're not guaranteed to be picking in top 5, obviously, and Matt Ryan is nearing the twilight, or if you decide Penei Sewell is the best player on the board, or Kyle Pitts is your guy because you might be losing Julio sometime soon, so there's going to be a volume of targets around. I wouldn't blame them. I 100% though do think that they are the trade back candidate in the top 5. I think that I would have said the Denver Broncos. I think I did say Denver Broncos before that trade happened, and I'm still staying firm. I think that Denver could be on the move. I don't think Teddy Bridgewater is going to stop you from making that move. But then you're hearing New England is trying to trade into their top 10. Other teams, I'm sure, like the Washington football team, if they had enough capital to get up there, the Chicago Bears, if they had enough capital to get up there, would be interested. I really do think, though, that Atlanta is going to be on the move. Maybe it's a team also in the top 10 that wants an offensive tackle, let's say, and they want to jump Cincinnati, which is the assumed spot for Penei Sewell, then we could have what is not a traditional trade up in the top 10 for a non-quarterback. But I really do think that Atlanta could be on the move tonight.
All right, good stuff. Ryan Roberts here, the draft. Check out his mock draft at Rise and Draft. You got Penei Sewell 5, which I think the Bengals would be a home run, although I feel like the Bengals will Bengals. I just feel like they screw this up. But if they don't, Penei Sewell's the guy. Chase 6, then the 2, then Waddle 7, Horn 8. So that's a little high. You like J.C. Horn at 8. A lot of people think he could be there at 12, but you think, nope, not going to happen.
I think that J.C. Horn's going to be off the board by 10. I think Carolina, if they stay firm, we talked a little bit about 7, 8, and 9, those back-to-back-to-back with the Lions, Panthers, and who's 9? Denver Broncos. They could be on the move. They could be trade-back candidates. If they stay firm, I do think J.C. Horn is definitely in play at 8. I think then that he will be in play again with the Dallas Cowboys pick. From my understanding, JC's college defensive back coach, Coach T-Rob, who is now at the University of Miami, just got over there this past offseason. He has a very close relationship with Dan Quinn. I'm told that Dallas likes JC a ton. So I do think that there's a high possibility that JC is off the board at 10, which could be great for Eagles fans because that would mean that maybe Patrick Surtain might be there when they're picking.
Correct. And you have you actually have Zach Wilson going 9, which you admit it's not going to happen, but that's where you would be picking him. If you were the GM of the Denver Broncos, they'd probably be doing backflips in that situation. Patrick Surtain, you have going to Dallas. Micah Parsons going to the Giants. And at number 12, you've got Rashawn Slater. Now, how many things will be thrown through televisions in the Delaware Valley if that was the case?
Yeah, I know they will be. I wanted to do something a lot more fun. I did put in there that the predictive was Devonta Smith, so I had a little more fun with it. I just feel like I feel like if the board falls the way that I kind of projected it to, and we're having Horn and Slater off the board. Horn and Surtain off the board, and we had Waddle off the board, and we had Chase off the board. I think that it would be a very good conversation between, Devonta Smith, but in that situation, I did have Rashawn Slater falling to 12 because he's assumed to be a potential top 10 pick. And I think that it just makes sense for them. I know it's not going to be the short-term impact that Eagles fans are going to get really excited about. And I know it's not sexy to give a team an offensive lineman at 12. I completely understand why there would be some pushback on it. But for me, left tackle with Jordan Mailata and the kid that came out a couple years ago, Washington State, Andre Dillard. Yep, Andre Dillard and Jordan Mailata. They're fighting out for left tackle. It's a little bit of a question mark, even though I know Mailata did play well in spurts last year. You have Isaac Seumalo, who I know, they've re-signed, but I think he's just always going to be a guy that could be replaced because I don't think he's so stellar. And then Jason Kelsey, obviously, we're talking about every year. He might be out the door. He might be retiring. Brandon Brooks coming back from the Achilles injury. And then obviously Lane Johnson's been dealing with injuries over the last couple of years too. So I think there's a lot more question marks on the Eagles offensive line than people would want to admit. In a vacuum, if everybody's healthy, then okay, it's not a need at all. But let's be honest,
right.
The history has dictated that one of them might be hurt. And I think that Rashawn Slater does give you flexibility where I prefer him inside a guard. Some people like him at tackle. I talked to a former scout who I do a podcast every week with, who was in the game for 18 years, that says, I think he's a center eventually. So I think he gives you flexibility. I think he can fit into multiple spots on your offensive line. And I think there's more unsettling holes on that offensive line than people like to admit to themselves.
Which is no doubt what Andy Weidel almost verbatim said. Like, the fact that you can wear many hats is very attractive to them. That's why I don't think you're way off base with Slater. My question would be, all right, you have them taking Slater. Is that because it's the fit, or do you think it's better to trade back? Is Slater there? How far deep can he fall to?
I think that's probably around the spot where Slater will go in general. I don't think he's going to fall too much because he's very liked in NFL circles, and that's pretty consistent across the board. So I don't think it would last too much longer than that. That's probably nearing the floor of where he goes. Could you trade back a couple spots? It's very possible. The good thing, though, is if you were interested in offensive line and Slater was your guy, if you do drop back a couple spots, and let's say Slater goes off the board, there is guys like Tevin Jenkins from Oklahoma State who, although played right tackle at Oklahoma State, I think that he would be a very dominant interior lineman. I think he would be an outstanding guard. So there is still some players with similar flexibility, but I really do like the fit of Slater there just because, again, he not only does he offer the ability to start at multiple positions, when we talk about roster construction, the ability to play multiple spots, I mean, he saves you a roster spot because he could literally start a position and back up 3 to 4 spots. Like that, he has that type of skill set, which is very valuable. And I think GMs would love that type of versatility. But I do think that if you trade back, you're not in a bad situation because, again, a guy like a Tevin Jenkins, if he's there, the fit also makes sense. But obviously, I know Eagles fans are really looking for, like, hey, we want a corner, we want a wide receiver, or maybe Micah Parsons if he falls.
Yeah, but it's funny because the smart teams and the Eagles, when they have won and they have drafted well, it's Lane Johnson, it's Brandon Graham, it's Fletcher Cox. They typically hit on the lines. That's when they won. And a lot of the good teams, that's where they win. They win by drafting on the line. So I don't – it's like I feel like Slater is very much in play. Darrisaw, Vera Tucker, you have them going bang, bang, bang. So 3 in a row offensive line in that spot. It seems that the offensive linemen are starting to jump up a little bit here as we get closer to first pick.
Yeah, that middle round of offensive tackles, there is, in my opinion, a pretty significant drop-off from Sewell, but I think there's a lot of guys middle of the first, end of the first, in the second round. It's a very deep offensive line class. So, again, if you have to drop back, and even a Vera Tucker that you just mentioned, like that would be a solid fit for the Eagles. I think it would because he played some tackle. I think he's definitely more projected inside the guard, but it gives you versatility. And, again, I know it's not the sexy pick, but like you just said, I mean, Eagles fans hated it when Lane Johnson was the selection a couple years ago, a few years ago now at this point. Like, they did not like that pick at all. But long term, You won a Super Bowl. He's been one of the best right tackles in football for a long time, and you haven't been able to say anything negative about him. So I really do think that the value of building inside out cannot be undersold, because that's how the best teams do it.
All right. Real quick, I'm looking over the mock draft here. One spot, you got Bateman going in round 1. You've also got Rondell Moore getting into round 1. Greg Rousseau going to the Buccaneers at 32. That feels like a steal. It almost feels like the year, though, that who went to Arizona the year they went to the Super Bowl? The kid from Mississippi, Ole Miss, Robert. But when they
and Robert Nkedici.
There you go. Yes, the guy.
Yep.
So he kept falling, and the Super Bowl team got him. It feels like that's with Rousseau with the Buccaneers. But that would be an interesting Jason Owe, another very interesting pick. If the Ravens at 31, you've got Travis Etienne going to the Bills at 30. Good spot for them. They need a running back bad. But the one interesting one that I just want to get your comment on is two. Barrymore at 25 and Kwity Paye at 26. A lot of people think Kwity Paye is the best edge rusher, but you got him falling all the way down to 26 in your mind. And Barrymore feels like about the only defensive tackle that's draftable almost this year.
Definitely the only one that I think is going to have a shot at the first round. I know some people are Levi Onwuzurike fans. I am too, but I'm much more into the second round conversation for a guy like Levi. I think Barrymore has the talent to be a pretty high volume sack guy on the interior. Now, he has not put it together. He, unfortunately, he had his flashes as a part-time player in 2019. Then he was dealing with an injury in the preseason that kind of, he wasn't in the best playing shape, to be as nice about it as possible the first couple of games. He rounded into form down the stretch against Notre Dame in the national championship game. Kid was dominant. I mean, there was talent there. I compared him to Marcel Darius, who also came out of Alabama. I think that's that type of impact. Marcel had a really productive early part of his career and then kind of dwindled, pretty quickly. But I think Barrymore has the potential, has the talent. To be very honest, like for what Jacksonville needs at that spot, just didn't really love the board, really didn't. But I think that adding an interior lineman to them, because they have Josh Allen, they have Caleb on Chase on as their outside track rushers. But I mean, right now their best defensive tackle is Taven Bryan. Like it's not very good. So Christian Barmore, I think, made a little bit of sense. And then Kwity Paye, for me, I think that there is upside with Kwity Paye. I think if he hits his ceiling, he could be a 8 to 9, 10 sack guy, because he does have that talent. He has the skill set. You just haven't seen it enough, I think he's just a wild card. I know he might go higher than this because there's some rumors about Philadelphia at 12. So he might go higher than that just based upon it's an edge group that is missing that top guy, and guys are going to get pushed up because that is a paramount position in football. So Kwity Paye might go a little higher, but for me at that spot with Cleveland, I was like, Cleveland's roster is pretty good. Their offensive line's good. Their weapons are pretty solid. Their secondary is improving. They could maybe have gone a linebacker at that spot, but I was looking, I'm like, okay, so they got Jadeveon Clowney on the other side of Myles Garrett as a rental for a year, right? So getting a high impact guy potentially down the road that maybe isn't ready to dominate from the jump, to learn from a guy like a Clowney and a Myles Garrett. I felt like that made a lot of sense for a guy like Kwity Paye. And then he adds something for you like, hey, on third downs, maybe we get him out and just tell him to run as fast as he can around the arc, and you move Jadeveon Clowney inside and let him use his length and his power. So I just think that made a lot of sense. And I'm just a little hesitant on Kwity early on because I just don't know if you're going to get the early impact that you would want for a highly regarded edge rusher.
Ryan Roberts, Coast to Coast Scouting at Rise and Draft on Twitter. Check out his full mock draft over there. Check out the Believe in the NFL Prospects podcast as well. And he, like all guests for the NFL draft, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. He'll be back tomorrow to recap round number 1 and preview round 2 and 3. Ryan, thanks, man. Enjoy the night.
Absolutely, Mike. Thank you again so much.
All right. He, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. And don't forget, our draft coverage on the Sports Bash is brought to you by GMS Law. Make the right call. GMS Law, with 4 convenient locations to serve you. Online, gmslaw.com. So Tim Tebow is in the news. Football news. I will tell you the details next. Hey, congratulations, Connor Juckett. He's got a 4-pack of Flyers tickets. He's going to see the Flyers and the Devils Saturday. 4-pack, Connor Juckett. Congratulations. We have another 4-pack to give away. Today on the show, actually, I have 2 more 4-packs to give away for the Devil game on Saturday. I also have 4-packs to give away for the game on Monday night against the Penguins and Tuesday night against the Penguins. So listen for your chance to score Flyers tickets here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Tim Tebow's back in the news. I don't know if you've seen this or not, but he requested a tryout with the Jacksonville Jaguars, not to play quarterback, though, to play tight end. No answer has been given by the Jaguars, but the coach is Urban Meyer. I can't imagine he says no to Tim Tebow, who is now 33 years old, played quarterback in the NFL, also played baseball with the Mets in the minor league system, broke his wrist, left baseball, and now wants to play tight end with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence throwing to Tim Tebow. It could happen in 2021. Is that just a draft BS smokescreen? No, it actually happened. All right, when we come back, Jason Fitz, ESPN Radio. What will be the weirdest thing that happens in round 1 tonight? Jason Fitz coming up next here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. And don't forget, watch the show live video on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. Now, live inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, here's Mike Gill.
All right, today's the day the NFL draft is here. We got you covered. Now, Jay Fitz, the last time I saw him, had a Raiders helmet on. I don't know that he's pumping the Raiders helmet for you today for our audience. However, he is with us now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. He's getting ready for the draft. He's got a lot going on for the draft, so we'll let him kind of tell you his role in tonight's draft, get some draft thoughts from him as Spain and Fitz host Jason Fitz joins us right now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. No helmet.
I mean, I can grab it. It's only a few feet away. You never know when the helmet's going to come out, my friend. Like, let's go. When they tell me to make a pick for the Raiders, I'm going to represent the Raiders. I've been trying to figure out whether or not to take the helmet with me tonight for the draft broadcast because the Raiders will inevitably be on the clock. The camera will inevitably give me a close-up when the Raiders inevitably pick somebody nobody's ever heard of in the first round, and they want my immediate reaction.
You had them essentially taking in the KJZ mock draft someone that at most casual fans had not heard of.
Well, in fairness, the Raiders have a history of drafting for need. So, most years going in what they're looking for. This year they have a needed tackle and a glaring needed safety. And, as a lot of people have covered, there are really only two safeties in this draft that can step in and start. Trayvon Merring out of TCU, Richie Grant out of UCF. The Raiders don't pick again until 48. So they want to get a safety. I think they're going to have to get it in the first round, even though it feels weird to draft a safety that high. So, and I know Keyshawn just destroyed the pick, but realistically, you got to have a starting safety somewhere, and the Raiders don't. So, to me, I think that's why I've come to grips with it, but I really don't know, and this will impact Philly. Like, when you think across the board this year, the over-obsession with quarterback at the top of the draft means suddenly defensive players are going to fall, and we have no idea what that means. I think a lot of teams are going to be looking to get up to 12 or 13 when one of these top corners or Micah Parsons, like one of them is sitting there. There is going to be some level of I've got to go get that guy from somebody.
Jay, how weird look at the news that's already out today. The 49ers trying to trade for Aaron Rodgers. Tim Tebow is back. At least he's trying to get back, but he wants to play tight end. Is this just a precursor of a bonkers first round of the draft tonight? Do you think all the smoke screens, the BS meter is high right now, but does legit weird stuff happen tonight?
Yeah, I think what's going to happen tonight that we can predict is a lot of teams are going to try and trade out. And that's the one thing I don't think enough people have talked about. Like, the opt-out thing has created this weirdness where, I'll look at Gregory Rousseau, the kid out of Miami, great edge rusher, put on about 20 pounds before his pro day because he didn't play in 2020. And you know what? It was 20 pounds of good muscle. Like, I'm not faulting the kid, but we have no idea what that looks like on tape. So how do you analyze Gregory Rousseau? You don't. You have no idea. I think the lack of tape on these kids means a lot of teams are going to be willing to trade for an existing player, or they're going to be willing to trade out of this draft altogether. I could instead, if I have job security and know I'm going to be somewhere for 4 or 5 years, if I can trade myself into next year's draft instead, as a GM, I would do it 100 times out of 100. So I think it's going to be unpredictable because there are a lot of teams aggressively looking to move out. And then there are teams that I've talked to a couple of different teams that do not have the same quarterback judgments that we do. So I still think that Justin Fields is going to be a coveted quarterback at the top of the draft, which means somebody, cough Chicago, is going to overpay because jobs rely on it. I think somebody's going to overpay to move up big.
Didn't somebody already overpay the 49ers? Didn't they already overpay to move up big? I can't imagine them doing what they did and landing one of these guys. To me, this is just bizarre that they did what they did to draft one of the options that are in this draft.
We talked to somebody on Spain and Fitz from KMBR, and I asked him, why all the smoke screens? Like, I don't get it. When you're moving up that high, just make your dang pick, right? And the answer, the only answer he gave me out of all the different possibilities that made sense is San Francisco really likes the attention. They just want to be part of the conversation, and they like stirring everybody up. This is that kid that we all knew in high school that didn't really care about the final grade. He just cared about making sure he agitated everybody along the way. I think that's what the 49ers are doing. I think they're squarely set on who they're going to draft. I still hope it's Justin Fields, but there's enough smoke around Mac Jones that I'm guessing that's who it's going to be. I think they're just stirring the pot now because they can and because it's fun for them.
Yeah, I know that they are going to probably take a quarterback. Let me ask you this, though. If you were the Jets at 2, would you have traded Darnold to take one of these guys, or do you have the second pick and you're like, hey, this is a good opportunity for us to do something different, maybe trade out? Or did you feel like if you're the Jets, you had to get a quarterback again?
I think the Jets made a huge mistake in getting rid of Sam Darnold. Not because Sam Darnold's great, but because Patrick Mahomes on that roster last year would still have been a 6-10 team. Like, if your team is that bad that the best player in the NFL can't save you, the hell are you going to do with the quarterback at 2 overall? So Zach Wilson's coming into a situation where, frankly, I don't think it's a great situation for him. And I think he's a huge unknown. I hope he works out, but let's be real. I mean, you're talking about a kid that made more plays. That Stats and Info did the deep dive for us on ESPN. He made more plays out of the pocket, or what they call out of time. So he took too long to make the throw, than any other quarterback in college last year. His athleticism saved him, but you can't do that in the NFL. So just because he throws the ball like Mahomes when he's under pressure, everybody's in love with him. But we have no idea what that means for how he'll actually process a real defense in the NFL.
I have a hard time taking a guy at number 2 that lost a football game to Coastal Carolina. That's just me.
Yeah, but in the meantime, we're turning around here trashing Justin Fields for playing poorly against Northwestern and Indiana, 2 games where his team didn't practice the week leading up because of COVID, and he was missing his entire offensive line. It's amazing where we're giving benefit of the doubt and won't on the other side. Same with Trey Lance. I don't understand the Trey Lance thing at all.
That one's bizarre, considering they basically played an exhibition game for him to play 1 game this year, which was not all that good. But look, this is all right. I want to get into this conversation with you real fast. The whole dynamic of, where do you sit on analytics in sports? Are you a like anti, love it, give me more? Where's your line on analytics?
I think analytics, like, there should be an analytics nerd on every sideline in every sport, and they should give the coach the information. And then coaches, GMs, and managers across every sport should take that information and decide what it makes their gut feel. Because ultimately, I still want the guy on the sideline making the decision based on what they know and what they feel about football or baseball or basketball. I don't want analytics to drive decisions. I just want analytics to be given as part of the decision-making process.
Right. So, see, I'm not an anti-analytics guy. Even if I loved them, even if I was swore by them, I feel that it's just overkill. We have too much information now in sports. If you gave me the checkbox to say, would you like analytics or get rid of them? I'd say get rid of them. We have too much information. Just your roster against my roster. Who's more talented? Not who has more information. Just play the damn game. I feel like we have overkill of information. And when we hear these stories about dysfunction in front offices, I feel that every team has dysfunction because there's too much information. Too much information in sports. Sports is supposed to be simplistic. Too much info, get the numbers out.
I think part of the reason we have so much information is because, on the media side, to be honest and blunt, I think there's a lot of people that just don't watch enough. And so they can read a stat pack and then have some information they can go with, and that's what they make their decision on. In front offices, you'll always have this divide, I think, of guys that have come up from, lesser playing backgrounds that this is what they rely on. Hey, I've got the information. I've studied the game. And I studied the game. I obviously didn't play it. I'm a little guy. But then when you've got this sort of confrontation between somebody that did play it versus somebody that didn't play it, and analytics become the answer, I think that's where analytics become the problem. Like, I can have all the analytics all day, every day about the offensive lineman in this draft. If I take those to Mike Golick Jr. and he says, yeah, but, I listen to his yeah, but, because while he may not have made it in the NFL, he was a hell of a player in college football. And I'll look at the college tape and say, hey, tell me why you think that way. Here's what the numbers say. And he'll tell me, and I'll listen to that all day, because I think numbers they're a good foundation, but realistically, you got to listen to the people that played.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of stemmed from the other night. Alec Boehm hit a line drive at a exit velocity of 106, to which, Jay Fitz, his expected batting average on said exit velocity is 800. So in other words, if he hit the ball that hard every time up, he should have an 800 batting average. That, to me, what am I supposed to do with an expected batting average because the exit velocity off that particular at-bat? How do I utilize that as a team and a franchise? I want your answer on this one, because I can't come up with it.
You don't. This is stupidity. And look, and it drives me crazy in the analysis of baseball, particularly because it doesn't give you any context. Like, one thing we have to remember about any analytic is that it is done in a vacuum. So it doesn't matter if if it's a day where a guy's sore, if it's a day where a guy's on back-to-backs in the NBA. Like, the number of bad analytics we see, because all it does is consider the raw data without the human that produces all of that raw data, which factors into every single person. I've got a buddy that's an attorney, and he said one thing you always have to remember with closing arguments is you don't remember if the judge that day had an argument with his wife before he got there. And you think about that in sports, and we rarely think about it. Like, there is so much human context that goes into raw analytics that is simply not considered, that I look at that stuff and I just laugh and say, cool, you're smarter than me for knowing it, and I'm just going to gloss over it.
That's when I see, ESPN, it puts it up on the screen. The Lakers play whoever on Friday night. They have a 58% chance of winning that game. According to what? Where did you get this 58% from? And why are you throwing that on the screen? Where did this number come from? 58%. Who pulled it out?
Yeah, and look, I was yelling at the TV the other night as I was ready for Sports Nation. They put up a stat that the Celtics lost to a team on a 14-game losing streak for the first time. And my immediate question to our stats group was, how many times has that happened? Who were the other teams? Like, give me context to it. And to be honest, nobody was interested in that. It's like, no, this is just an interesting nugget for the show. And that's just sort of where we're like, people look at that and they're like, oh, that's cool. Okay, well, how many times in modern basketball have the Celtics played somebody on a 14-game losing streak in that situation? I mean, context is required for analytics.
Right. In a game that beforehand, the number was, they had an 87% chance of winning this game. How? Why did they have an 87%? Who came up with this 87%? Crazy. And that's what this draft is. It's just, we're drafting players. We have no idea if they're going to succeed, fail. You could draft a guy. If he went to one team, he would fail. If he went to another team, he might be a success. I think that gets lost in the sauce as well, about how big of a crapshoot this all is. But that doesn't necessarily mean the guy can't play. He just might not be a good fit for what you want him to do.
And that's why the Mahomes conversation is maddening, because he went to a quarterback that helped develop him on an offense that was built around him, with a coach that was smart enough to see his skills. If he'd gone to Chicago, would all of those things happen? No. So why are Bears fans constantly talking about the fact that they missed out on him? And remember, from 2009 to 2016, 22 quarterbacks were taken in the first round of the NFL draft. Today, none of those 22 quarterbacks are still on the team that drafted him. It's an inexact science. Right. And realistically, we've spent months talking about mocks, which is maddening to me, even in that sense, as somebody that covers the draft as part of my living. We are speculating about speculation, which is just stupid, but we all eat it up.
See, and this is like a Seinfeld episode. I brought us all the way back. I got you to get me where I wanted to end. You just said it. The Eagles fans, like, how did we pass on Justin Jefferson? You're now assuming that Jefferson would have had 1,400 yards had he been playing in your lousy offense, which there's no guarantee of. You know what would happen if the Eagles drafted Justin Jefferson? We'd be complaining about why we got the worst receiver of the group.
And I'll add one more to that. A smart sports writer told me years ago, every single year we talk about how brilliant the Patriots were for finding Tom Brady in the 6th round of the NFL draft, without ever acknowledging that the New England Patriots failed on Tom Brady 5 other times. Remember, if anyone had known he was going to be Tom Brady, the Patriots would have taken him with their first pick, but they didn't, or their second pick, but they didn't. If the Vikings had known Justin Jefferson was going to be Justin Jefferson, he'd have been drafted in the 1st round. Like, there would have been no opportunity for him. Everybody misses on a prospect not taken in the 1st round. We just forget to acknowledge that point.
Yeah, that's the DK Metcalf. But people fail to mention that not only did Metcalf get passed over in the 1st round and the 2nd round, the Seahawks passed on him twice before they finally took him, because they had 2 picks ahead of him, and they got him with their 2nd pick of the 2nd round. The Inexact Science starts tonight at 7 o'clock here on 97.3 ESPN. Jason Fitz, what are you doing for the draft tonight?
So if you guys like ESPN on the live stream, wherever you live stream ESPN, in the app, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, you can go to any ESPN social. I'll be part of a massive group tonight. Mike Golick Jr., Field Yates, Matt Berry, the cast of Sports Nation, Tonight, tomorrow night, we will cover every single pick, first pick to very end. And Saturday, we're doing a simulcast for the first time ever of ESPN radio and digital. So I'll be hosting on the radio and digital side on Saturday. So literally every single pick I'll be covering somewhere if you want to watch on third screen. And if you're watching on ABC, ESPN, keep your eye out. I sat down with a bunch of Rock and Roll Hall of Famers. They're going to play those vignettes throughout the course of all of the draft on both networks. So even if you don't like me, you're going to have to watch me during the draft. Let's go.
And Saturday, you'll hear Jay Fitz right here on 97.3 ESPN from noon until 7. We'll have draft coverage here on 97.3 ESPN. And he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. I really wish I got the helmet, but I'll settle for just your face.
You know what? Next time we'll go helmet.
See you, man.
Thanks.
All right, Jason Fitz here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Brought to you by Matt Blatt Nissan. The all-new Matt Blatt Nissan now open on the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township. It's next to Home Depot. Online, mattblattnissan.com. Jay Fitz has the Saturday portion of the NFL draft coverage on 97.3 ESPN. Tomorrow night, the coverage starts at 6. Tonight, we kick you off at 7. And don't forget, Josh has live stream on the 97.3 ESPN YouTube video. Andy McNamara from Sportsnet will join him for picks 1 through 10. Casey Joyner, the back 20 from 22 to the end. And I will be jumping on with him sometime in the middle there when I can make it happen for tonight's live stream on the YouTube channel. So make sure, as you said, if the radio broadcast, the television broadcast, just not enough, we'll be breaking down all the picks. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. And the free mobile app. And don't forget, live video. Yes, Jefferson was taken in the first round. I think he was talking about he would have been taken higher in the first round, like where Ruggs, Judy, CeeDee Lamb, where those guys were taken. I caught that as well. When you talk all day, every day, yeah, sometimes these things just kind of. All right, coming back, it's inside the Sixers. Keith Smith. By the way, the Sixers were up by 30 when I turned the game on last night. So crazy news. Adam Schefter just dropped a bomb. Aaron Rodgers wants to be traded. He does not want to play with the Packers anymore. So there's that to start this day off. We've also got Tim Tebow returning to the NFL potentially. He wants to play tight end in Jacksonville. Keith Smith, how can you top that?
I don't know if I can. That was why I was paused. I had not seen that Adam Schefter report. That's crazy.
That just literally came down about 5 minutes ago. Here's the tweet. Reigning MVP Aaron Rodgers is so disgruntled with the Packers that he has told some within the organization he does not want to return to the team. League and team sources told ESPN on Thursday. That's essentially like LeBron James going to the buses and saying, I don't want to be here anymore, right? I mean, that's that kind of story.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what that would be like. I'd be, maybe even, bigger than that because he's only ever been with the Packers. He's, kind of become Mr. Packer there. So yeah, that is I'm struggling to think that would have been like when there was those rumors of Kobe Bryant was, hey, I'm interested in being traded.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
I want to get your opinion. Last night, I know the Hawks were very short-handed. Philly kind of waxed them last night, but it was nice to see the Sixers had been struggling there. They lost the 2 games to Milwaukee shorthanded. They lost the game to Phoenix shorthanded. They lost the game to Golden State shorthanded. But I guess last night and the game against Oklahoma City was kind of all right, this team was struggling because they were shorthanded. They looked pretty smooth last night, getting George Hill in there. But really, Keith, having Ben Simmons, I think that not having Ben Simmons shows how important he really is.
He is. He remains their single best playmaker off the dribble for himself and for others. They don't have anybody else who can replicate that. And I know that maybe sounds a little silly because he's a 6'10" guy who's running all over the place and making plays off the bounce. Not a lot of teams have that, but the next best guy for Philadelphia off the dribble is probably Shake Milton, and that's a pretty big downgrade. No knock against Shake Milton, who's carved out a pretty nice role for himself, but Simmons is clearly very, very important to this team. And I think these last couple games also show when they've got everybody, they can beat anybody. They're right there. They will contend for a title. But if they're missing any of their guys, they're in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that goes a long ways for both. But Ben Simmons, Keith, if you could only read our text and see our engagement about Simmons, how polarizing of a player he is. People think he stinks. They want to get rid of him. He can't play. He doesn't score. He doesn't shoot. But I think it clearly shows he might be one of the more underappreciated players in the entire league about how important he really is to the success, because they can have Joel Embiid out there, and I think he might be the MVP of the league. But without Simmons, defensively is where that team falls apart, and that is so undervalued in this league.
Yeah, absolutely. And that it's there. There's 2 things that come to mind I always think about with Ben Simmons is one of the first is there's so much focus on what he can't do, and that's shoot the ball with range. And then that ends up overlooking all of the great things he can do. Like I said, he's 6'10", and he's essentially a point guard. He is able to make plays off the bounce that guys his size just can't do. He is maybe I'm not even going to say maybe. I'm just going to go with it. He is the game's most versatile defensive player. He will defend anybody 1 through 5, defend them well, really handle them, handle his own in there. So that is, when you don't have that, that becomes a huge deficit because nobody else has anything that they can do to really kind of match that. And that becomes really tough when he's not in that mix as a big player in for them, because like I said, there's just nobody who can do that. Matisse Thybulle can do some of the defense. Milton can do some of the offense creation, but nobody can do all of it.
So in your opinion, we're coming down the stretch. Brooklyn's in first. They're a game up, 3.5. You look out west, you've got Utah a game up on Phoenix. The West is really hard because the Lakers didn't have AD and LeBron. They're 9 back, but they're the 5 seed right now. Denver's playing well without Murray. Clippers obviously still in the mix. In today's NBA right now, does an offensive-minded team win, or does a defensive-minded team have a shot in today's game?
I think a defensive-minded team has a shot provided they have guys who can create offense late in games. If you are just we lock it in defensively, but that's really all we can do, you're going to struggle in the playoffs. The playoffs is all about owning individual matchups and being able to have somebody you can throw the ball to and trust that guy is going to get you a good shot, or he's going to create a good shot for himself. And that is, that's kind of what has defined every team that has won. Even if we go back to that Toronto Raptors team, for all that they were probably known as a defensive team, you had guys like Kyle Lowry, Kawhi Leonard, Fred VanVleet, and even Norman Powell that could create offense off the dribble, go get themselves a good shot whenever they needed one. And that's something that you have to win playoff games.
Right. And so if I were to ask you, how would you classify what is the identity of Philadelphia?
I think they're a defensive-minded team first, but they do have guys you can throw the ball to and feel like they can get you a pretty good shot. Simmons is one of them. It gets a little bit harder on him in the playoffs for sure. His teams will scheme for him. They're going to do some different stuff. But clearly you have Joel Embiid. His ability to play great deep in the ball games has made all the difference. And then Tobias Harris. If you get the Tobias Harris in the postseason that has been around for most of this year, that lifts Philadelphia from being a very good team to a potential title contender, because he is the guy who you can, I think at this point, trust against anybody but the absolute most elite of defenders, that you can give him the ball and he's going to create a pretty good look. It's probably going to be for himself versus for others. That's okay as long as he's able to get there consistently.
Yeah, that I think that's well put in terms of Harris. If they have the Harris that you get in the regular season, I think the fans can believe in this team. If you get a Harris that you've seen in past years, probably not. I think the big question, Keith, will be, what kind of defense are teams going to throw at Philadelphia and Ben Simmons come playoff time? Like, do we see on a night-to-night basis on a regular season how teams are going to defend the Sixers in the regular season? Probably not.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. This year more than ever, there's no time to build schemes for individual opponents. There's no practice time. Most teams aren't even having shoot-arounds on game day because there's so many back-to-backs and 3 and 4 nights and all those kind of things. So what that does is you build a scheme that works for you defensively, and you just run that kind of regardless of the opponent on the other side. So what ultimately is going to happen in the first playoff series that Philadelphia plays, they're probably going to be better than the team because they're going to be a 1, 2, or 3 seed. I'm thinking they're probably going to be 1 or 2. And if they're 1 or 2, they're going to get a pretty weak first-round opponent. Unless it's Miami, they can be a little bit of a weird team, depending on how they look when they get there. But they should be favored. But what you're going to get a sense of is how are teams going to defend Simmons in that point, because what they'll really do there is you'll see them drop off him. You'll see them switch. You'll see them maybe even hide guys on him at times, especially when he's off the ball, and you'll switch around that. And that's going to be something that Philadelphia's going to have to work around, just like they have every other postseason. The good thing is now they've got some shooting around that they haven't had before, and that makes a difference compared to years past.
All right, I want to get your thoughts as we have we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So the Sixers have 10 games left. So we're about 10 games left in the season. Brooklyn, Philly, Bucks. Those 3 legit title contenders. Anybody else in the East you could see making the finals?
Yeah, it's hard. They probably should have given up already on Boston and Miami. It's just so hard when they did what they did last year in the playoffs to really kind of discount them. Both of those teams, Celtics a little bit more so, have been so banged up. Boston, it came out the other day, they've missed, I believe it's 167 games due to COVID-related absences.
Wow.
That is 10 to 15 more than any other team in the league, and that is more than, I want to say it's the bottom 11 to 12 teams combined have missed. So every time Boston looks like, all right, they've turned the corner, they're figuring this out, somebody else goes down and they're missing another guy. So, and we've seen when they have most of their guys, just how good they look, but they're so inconsistent. It's hard to believe in them. And then Miami, it's their offense is just not taking that step forward that I think we thought they might last year. They're so reliant on Jimmy Butler to do everything for them offensively that becomes a pretty big problem. So I think, what ultimately happens with those 2 teams is, if they really hit everything right and they're firing on all cylinders, they can maybe get in that mix. but it's got to almost go perfectly for them.
Is there a team, you said Boston and Miami. Is there a team right now? I know Washington's won 9 out of 10. New York has been 9 out of 10. Is there a team that one of those three don't want to face in the first round?
I would say it's probably Boston or Miami. The Knicks, my worry for the Knicks is they almost kind of remind me of those first couple Philadelphia playoff teams where they were pretty good defensively, but then you saw their offensive limitations show up big time once they got into the postseason. And I'm afraid that's what's going to happen to the Knicks. They are so reliant on Julius Randle and RJ Barrett to create just about everything for them. Derrick Rose does some off the bench. Emmanuel quickly does a little. But the rest of those guys, when we talked about the need to have somebody you can throw the ball to and feel confident that guy's going to get you a good shot, I'm afraid teams are going to load up on Randall, and they're going to put RJ Barrett in a position to say, all right, make it happen, kid. And I just don't know that he's quite there yet. I think the Knicks become a scarier team in a year or two when they've added to that roster and those guys have more experience. But yeah, Miami or Boston, I think you'd want to avoid them just more because of the pedigree than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, the way Beal and Westbrook are going, I mean, I can't imagine that Washington wins, but man, that would not be fun to get stuck having to, try to get yourself through a 7-game series with them, right?
Yeah, nobody wants to deal with that because those two guys can almost win a playoff game or two by themselves. It's the same in the Western Conference with guys like Stephen Curry and Damian Lillard. And if that happens, all of a sudden now you're in a series you didn't expect to be in. And that's not where you really want to be. So I think that becomes a little bit of your problem there is, you don't want to face those teams that have those super dynamic scorers because they can create all kinds of problems for you they weren't really expecting to have.
All right, real quick, Keith Smith with us. Can you go over the play-in tournament and how this works? Because it's a little different from last year. They're having the 7 play the 8 to be the 7 team. Is that accurate?
That is correct. So 7 plays 8. The winner will be the 7th seed. Then the loser of that game goes into another game. They still have a shot. 9 plays 10. The winner of that game will play the loser of 7 versus 8 to be the 8th seed. What they tried to do was game it so that 7 and 8 they still only have to win one game. One game in the first, you win the first, you are the 7th seed. You can lose that first one, but if you win the second, you're in there as the 8th seed. My biggest problem with the play-in tournament is they didn't keep any kind of standings qualifier. Doesn't look like it's going to matter this year. Looks like everybody's going to stay close enough. But I hope in future years they go back to that tweak. Because if you're 4 or 5 games out, you didn't do enough in the regular season, in my mind, to even have a shot at the play-in just because you got hot for a couple games in the last week of the season.
Well, I mean, and theoretically, Miami's the 7. They are 3 games up on Charlotte. If they happen to lose a game, now they're the 8 or have to play for the 8. I'm like, if the season ended right now, I was 3 games better than you. I was the 7th seed. Why am I playing to be seeded 7th? Makes no sense.
Yeah, that part. Yeah, and I don't know if you set that at 4 games or something like that, like they did in the bubble, where it was you got to be within 4 games to have a shot. I'm okay with that if that's the direction they went. I think your other challenge with the play-in, not challenge, I think benefit of the play-in is we only have about 5 teams that are kind of openly tanking this season versus at this point in the year, we're usually around 10, maybe even 12 teams. And we've got maybe a couple teams fighting for that final playoff spot. So I think we're now in a position where we have a lot more teams that are competitive. And I think that's really helped the product down the end because you're not having all these walkover games where you're turning it on. It's like, man, there's one good game tonight because half the league isn't really playing and doesn't really care.
Does the NBA, does the league feel like they fixed the tanking problem?
You don't know if they feel like they fixed it fully, but I think between the flattened lottery odds, which you're seeing a team like the Minnesota Timberwolves, because they were so poor early in the year, now that they're healthy, they're actually playing their guys because they're looking at it as, all right, we can't possibly win enough to get out of the flattened 1 through 4 lottery odds anyway. So we might as well play our guys, get some experience, and evaluate this roster. Between that at the bottom end and then the advent of the play-in tournament on the top end, I think they've done a lot to really kind of combat the tanking because you're sitting here with, like I said, you only got 4 or 5 teams, but even those really bad teams at the bottom, they're not playing it out from the ways where we've seen it in the past, where it's anybody who's even decent is, oh yeah, you have a hamstring strain or your back's bugging you. You need to sit out for 2 weeks. Where we're seeing these guys actually play this out.
Oh, and I've constantly said that I like the idea of the first team that misses the playoffs gets the first pick in the draft. So in other words, if you were the 9 seed in the old format, I guess, if you finished 9th, you were rewarded for your team doing exactly what you just said. Hey, we're struggling. We had young players. We got off to a slow start, but we wanted to improve our team. We wanted to get those guys experience, and we're winning to get up the standings to get a better draft pick, not losing to go down. I know they would never do such a thing, but I love what you just said is, hey, these teams are actually playing players because they want to evaluate young, talented players.
Yeah, that's what your hope is. I think the challenge with doing it that way is there's a couple things. One is it's very hard. This is where the whole idea of, taking all the lottery teams and having them play a tournament for the number 1 pick to some extent falls apart for me, because what happens in that tournament is if I'm the, Oklahoma City Thunder, why do I want to play really hard to get us a good pick so some guy can come in and take my job? Well, what's my benefit as a player there? That benefits the organization, but not me. So I think you got to do some form of bonus for the players, whether that's, you incent them with a nice prize pool or something along those lines. I think that, could really work out. But yeah, I think, I think there are some tweaks you could make to the whole way. Back when the bubble kind of captured all of us, and we're like, this is great because there's no bad teams, right? There are no terrible teams in the bubble. So we were getting good game after good game after good game. I wrote a piece for Yahoo Sports how in a normal world environment, how the NBA could help kind of replicate the bubble. And that's out there if anybody wants to read it. You can just look up Keith Smith, Yahoo ideal NBA season or something like that. And it'll pull it up for you. But that was the premise of, how do we create that excitement while also making the teams who are out of it still have something to play for at the end of the year.
At Keith Smith, NBA. Follow him on Twitter. And, of course, he, like August, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Sixers have the night off. They'll play the Hawks tomorrow night, and then they're back on Sunday against the Spurs on the road at the Bulls. They got 5 games next week at the Spurs, at the Bulls, at Houston, Pelicans, Pistons. So 5 games in 7 days for Philadelphia. They're still trying to get that number 1 seed, so they got to play well in those 5. Keith Smith, appreciate the time as always, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Enjoy the NFL draft tonight.
Oh, we sure will. And, of course, he, like August, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Great job, Keith Smith. Yahoo Sports covers the NBA with us all playoff season long here on the Sports Bash. And we'll get back into the NFL in just a little bit here. Before we do, I want to remind you, the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN is brought to you by Matt Blatt Kia. They want to get you approved today. Matt Blatt, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township. Keith will be with us for the NBA playoffs, so it's great to have him for Inside the Sixers each week. Tomorrow, Paul Hudrick is back to get us ready for the Sixers and the Hawks. Busy show tomorrow. Ryan Roberts, draft expert, Sal Powell, Adam Kaplan, Jeff Kerr. Jeff Kerr tonight, coming up in the 5 o'clock hour as well, right here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Yeah, 346 here on a Sports Bash Thursday, NFL Draft Day. Your draft questions. Andrew DiCecco, football at 4 coming up here. And you can ask your questions. We'll have Andrew answer those coming up in less than 15 minutes from now. So if you have a draft question for Andrew, hit us up on the text board, 609-403-0973, or over on the video stream. Jalen is watching the game, watching the show. Mike, any chance Howie packages multiple picks for Rodgers now? My Lord. I wouldn't rule it out. They have the ammunition. How many people would do that? You trade 2 first-round, 3 first-round picks to get Aaron Rodgers? You're 12 and the 2 picks you have next year? How about that? It's a lot. How old's Rodgers? 37, 38? Something like that? I got to look that up. Does Aaron Rodgers make you an instant 37 years old? Does Aaron Rodgers make you an instantaneous contender? Keep in mind, people act like Aaron Rodgers, all of a sudden, your team's amazing. The Green Bay Packers missed the playoffs a lot. They've won 1 Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. He's great. I'm not knocking him. But is he changing the franchise and making them a Super Bowl contender at 37 years old? He is the reigning MVP. That would be interesting. You have the ammunition to make the trade. You legitimately could trade this year's pick. Next year, you have 3 picks. First rounders. You could do it if the Eagles legitimately wanted to. They could say, hey, Green Bay, we have the insight for you, the ammunition for you. But what are you going to do? You're Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers says, I'm unhappy here. I don't want to be here anymore. Do you make that happen if you're Green Bay, or do you say, tough? You are under contract. You've got to be here. So they're in a tough spot if they're Green Bay. All that does, though, now, it adds to tonight. Because now you've got teams. There's a lot of teams. The Eagles have 11 picks. The Dolphins have a ton of picks. The Jets have a ton of picks. If you're the Jets, they already had Brett Favre on their team. Do they go down the road of saying, hey, we've got the 2nd pick in the draft? Would Green Bay entertain that? You better be damn right they would. I know they took Jordan Love last year, but if you're saying I have to trade Aaron Rodgers, like I'm not given a choice here, and you trade Aaron Rodgers away for the number 2 pick in the draft. Oh, by the way, and other stuff too. It would not just be the number 2 pick in the draft. Like if I'm Joe Douglas, I have to consider that, don't I? Don't you have to consider, if you're the Jets and Aaron Rodgers says he wants to be traded, don't you have, or do you say, look, he's 37 years old, he's only going to give you 3-4 more years, you got to take the quarterback who's going to be there for 10 years. The problem is you don't know if that quarterback's going to play for 10 years. That quarterback could be a bust. Aaron Rodgers is not going to be a bust. He goes to the Jets. Same question, though. Does adding Aaron Rodgers to an awful Jets team make them 500, 10-7? You can't be 500 anymore. That's the bad part about this 17-game schedule. You can't be 500 anymore. 500 is like a spot. Are you a 500 team? Are you 7-9? That's out the door. I don't know. Does Aaron Rodgers make the Jets 10-7, 9-8, 8-9? He doesn't make him a Super Bowl contender. But do you have Aaron Rodgers for a couple of years? Is it worth trading the number 2 overall pick for? I mean, how many teams right now are having this conversation? San Francisco, we can give you the number 3 overall pick. The problem is San Francisco traded so much to get the number 3 overall pick. So do they want to now reverse course, trade up all the stuff they gave up? Now, you could make the argument they couldn't have traded for Aaron Rodgers without the number 3 overall pick. I don't know. Would Green Bay, where was San Francisco before it? 6? They were at 12 originally. I don't know. Would they take 12 and next year's number 1 for Aaron Rodgers? Probably not enough. Green Bay's in a really weird spot. The Jets have now, I don't know that the Jets are talking about this. Look, this just happened. This is all just kind of like, okay, right now, throw this out there. Hey, by the way, Aaron Rodgers wants to be traded. And he's so disgruntled with the Packers, he's told them that he does not want to return to the team. How many teams are picking up the phone right now? How many people are picking up the phone and calling the Green Bay Packers right now? I can tell you, in my mind, let's see. If I'm the Jets, have to. If I am San Francisco, have to. If I am Atlanta, probably not. Right? Atlanta's probably not in the mix. Cincinnati, no. Dolphins, have to. I told you 3 years ago that Tua is going to just be an okay quarterback in the NFL. Doesn't mean I'm right, but so far, are you excited about Tua? I don't know that they are either. But if you're the Dolphins, have to. If you are New England, is that your trade? Is New England on the phone trying to figure out something with Green Bay right now? Would Green Bay even acquiesce to the Patriots? Or would they be like, all right, that's just not fair to the rest of the league to give you Tom Brady and then give you Aaron Rodgers? Carolina, they just traded for Sam Darnold. Are they on the phone? Are they saying we'll give you Sam Darnold and the number 8 overall pick? Is that a deal? How about Denver? Hey, we're the team that had Peyton Manning. We're the team that had John Elway. How about coming out here? We'll give you pick number 9. You'd have to probably give up more than 9. Well, definitively would have to give up more than 9. But should Denver be on the phone? You bet your ass they should. Dallas, no. The Giants, if I'm the Giants, I'd be on the phone right now and say, I got 11. Philadelphia at 12. I mean, it's hard to say you wouldn't, right? It's hard to say if you're Philly that you don't at least make a call and see what they want. The Chargers, no. Minnesota, tough spot. I don't know that Green Bay is going to deal in the division. Detroit, same situation. They're not dealing inside the division. Not Aaron Rodgers anyway. The Jets, by the way, keep in mind, they have 2 and 16, so they could make that offer. Hey, we'll give you 2 and 16. The Raiders, I'm almost positive, would make a call. You don't think that John Gruden is on the phone right now trying to figure out a way to make an offer? They have picked 17. How about the Washington football team? They have picked 19. Probably not enough. Obviously not enough. Not probably not enough. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Coming up, Football at 4, Andrew DiCecco answers your draft questions. Final mock draft from Andrew coming up next. Stick around. He's been great on the draft all the way leading up to this. This is it right here. His final mock draft. Who does Andrew DiCecco feel the Eagles will take? Find out. It's coming up next here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Don't forget, live video streaming on your smart TV, cell phone, laptop, or tablet. Just go to 97.3ESPN.com. Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, which dropped this morning. A look at the NFL draft, which is tonight right here on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, you can hear all the coverage starting at 7 o'clock. The NFL draft coverage on 97.3 ESPN is brought to you by GMS Law. Make the right call to GMS Law. 4 convenient locations to serve you online, gmslaw.com. Mike Gill, Andrew DiCecco is here. The final time before the NFL draft as Andrew and all guests appear via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Merry Christmas, Andrew.
Hey, Mike, how's it going?
It's going good. I know this is – how do you wake up on draft day? A little differently from others?
You have trouble sleeping the night before because you put so much preparation into this, and you're excited to see how everything sort of materializes. But it's just it's an eventful day.
Sure is. It's been an eventful time. How about Aaron Rodgers wanting to be traded? I mean, are the Green Bay Packers phone, is it blowing off the hook right now?
I have to imagine that it is. I mean, you're talking about the best quarterback in football, or certainly for top consideration. So, I mean, you'd be a fool not to if you're a team in need.
Yeah, no, it's okay. So let's start there before we look at this draft, because this comes into play at the last minute. Aaron Rodgers tells, hey, by the way, I don't want to play for you anymore. If you're the Jets, if you're San Francisco, and you're drafting a quarterback tonight, are you offering spot 2 or 3 to get Aaron Rodgers in lieu of taking a quarterback?
I think if you're a team like the Jets, you're more than Aaron Rodgers away from being a legitimate contender. So, I mean, do you really want to invest that in, that type of draft capital in Aaron Rodgers and waste, a couple of his prime years when you still have so much more to build, to build out the rest of the roster? And I don't know that I think that it would make much more sense from their vantage point to draft a young quarterback to sort of build around.
Yeah,
as they continue to build up the rest of the roster.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, the 49ers are in an interesting spot, though. This is a team that went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago, had all sorts of injuries last year. I mean, would you, if you're them, hey, we're at number 3. We went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. We had a lot of injuries last year. Are we Aaron Rodgers away? Are they Aaron Rodgers away? Would you trade the 3rd pick?
Yeah, now see that one's interesting because they do have some pieces on the defensive side of the ball. They have Deebo Samuel, they have Brandon Ayuk, they have a number of intriguing offensive weapons. So they're a team that would make a lot more sense than, let's say, the New York Jets. So I mean, that's certainly one to watch. I don't know that Green Bay is going to. Green Bay is still, the window is still very much open for them. So I don't know how inclined they're going to be to sort of unload a premium quarterback like Aaron Rodgers when we know how hard it is to get one in the draft. I mean, they did draft Jordan Love last year, but I mean, by all accounts, he's still a ways away from being able to step in and lead an offense.
If you're Philadelphia, you have the 12th pick. We've heard so much, Andrew, about is Hurts the guy. There's still some speculation that, hey, they would trade for a quarterback, or if there was one on the board, I should say trade up to take a quarterback, or if one of the quarterbacks was on the board at 12. They have a lot of – the Eagles certainly have the ammunition to get it done. Should they consider it?
Well, I'm sure they're going to consider it, but if you're Aaron Rodgers, why would you want to go to a team like Philadelphia that still is going to be probably 2 years away and doesn't really have much in terms of building blocks, and they're still a team in transition? And if you're the Eagles, why would you want to invest in Aaron Rodgers when you know that you're probably going to waste some of his prime years here? I mean, given all the other holes and deficiencies that kind of plague the roster, it just wouldn't make a ton of sense to me, as good as he is.
All right, Andrew DiCecco, a lot of questions before the draft. Which questions in your mind are still lingering out there as the first pick will be announced in about 4 hours from now?
Well, I think the Carolina Panthers represent the great unknown there at 8. Now that they've acquired Sam Darnold, it's kind of like, okay, well, they can go a number of different ways. So that's certainly going to weaken the talent pool when it comes to Philadelphia at 12. I also think that now the Denver Broncos at 9, they seem to me to be an ideal fit for a Micah Parsons now. I mean, not to say that adding Teddy Bridgewater should completely change their plan if they were going to go the way of a quarterback. But I mean, it's certainly, as I've written about, Teddy Bridgewater can certainly bridge the gap until, in the meantime, while they address other areas of their roster. So I think that sort of opens the door now to add a key piece like a Micah Parsons. And also the Dallas Cowboys, to me, strike me as a team that is going to pounce on one of those two corners should they have that opportunity at number 10. And I think if the Eagles want to get a Patrick Surtain or if they want to get a J.C. Horn, they're going to have to look at the Carolina Panthers or the Denver Broncos as trade partners to leapfrog Dallas there.
Yeah, Denver's interesting now. And by the way, if you're Denver, you went down the road of Peyton Manning in the past. I mean, do you call and offer number 9 and whatever else you can to Green Bay?
I mean, it certainly can't hurt. I mean, they have the offensive pieces. We know that. They spent the last 2 years adding guys like Noah Fant, and they have Cortland Sutton there. And they have a pair of running backs, and they added Hamler last season as well. So and Judy. So, I mean, that would be an intriguing destination. And then on defense, of course, you still have guys like Von Miller, and they added Ronald Darby and who else? They Kyle Fuller. So they do have some guys there that if they add a quarterback, they can certainly make a run.
Yeah, I think Pro Football Focus ranked all the rosters in the league and had their roster ranked 6th. It's just that their quarterback is ranked at the bottom. So essentially, they're saying if you gave them a quarterback, this is a pretty good roster. They're just a quarterback short. I think Denver, very interesting and intriguing here. All right, so let's go inside the division here. Number 10, Dallas. So what say you about what they are? What are their options and what's most likely?
I think Rashawn Slater's an option for them. I also think that more than likely, I think that when you look at where their deficiencies lie, their defense is extremely putrid, and it has been for quite some time, especially on the back end. They're going to, in all likelihood, have their option probably have the second corner, which would most likely be J.C. Horn, that might fall right into Jerry Jones's lap. So I think, and knowing that their division rival, the Philadelphia Eagles, are also in need of a corner, I think that might be a little bit of payback when the Eagles got Dallas Goedert. That they're going to be in position to do that, and I think that would make the most sense, and that's kind of how I envision them going.
All right, tonight Josh will be talking with Ann Fitzsimmons during game night. Now, he recorded that interview earlier in the day. I want you to listen, Andrew, to what he had to say about the Cowboys pick. Take a listen.
There is a connection here between Dan Quinn, the new defensive coordinator for the Cowboys, and Will Muschamp. They go back a long ways. Will Muschamp, the former head coach of South Carolina. So there's a J.C. Horn connection. Also, Mike McCarthy, head coach now of the Cowboys. He was the offensive coordinator for 4 years when Joe Horn was with the New Orleans Saints. So you have JC's dad and the head coach, and then the defensive coordinator and a Horns coach at South Carolina that have a deep connection.
So Horn, Patrick Surtain, who's more likely to be the corner taken by Dallas if they go that direction?
Yeah, all those comments were all good and well, but I mean, the main point is that J.C. Horn would, in all likelihood, fill a need for Dallas, and he's going to likely be the best player on the board. So it would make the most amount of sense regardless of the connections. And I think, in my opinion, he would be the guy. So, like I was saying, if the Eagles want to get one of those corners, they're going to have to get to at least 8 or 9 in order to confidently secure one of those guys.
So at this point, you don't think a corner will be there at number 12, one that they want anyway?
Yeah, I mean, it's starting to seem that way. And then, there's also the school of thought that, if the Eagles don't see the value there at 12 based on how the board shakes out, they could opt to trade down and go with a guy like a Greg Newsome, who would be in that next tier, or maybe a Kwity Paye. But, the first round there's always a lot of curveballs in that top 10. So it's really hard to predict, but it wouldn't surprise me if Dallas gets that corner, all of a sudden, it incites a domino effect where all of a sudden the Eagles are like, well, we're not crazy about the value here. And there's a couple guys that we like and we could probably get if we drop down a little bit. And those would be two guys that I would look for if that's the case.
Okay. Interesting there. So Dallas, Let's go to the Giants. And Andrew, obviously, the Giants have a lot of holes. They're getting better. This is a team that got better last year, but still in a bad division. So in your mind, what is Dave Gettleman thinking about right now at number 11?
Well, at number 11, that's another opportunity to possibly add, if Denver doesn't do so, I think that's going to be an interesting destination for a Micah Parsons. The Giants, I don't necessarily put them in that defensive back. I don't think that they're necessarily going to threaten as far as a team that's going to bring in one of those corners. I mean, when you look at what they have James Bradbury. They drafted Darnay Holmes last season. They signed Adoree Jackson. But when you look at their linebacking situation, they only have, I believe it's Brian Anderson, Blake Martinez, and Lorenzo Carter there. That could really stand to upgrade in terms of athleticism and just an overall, building block and just overall. None of those guys run particularly well, and I think they really need to upgrade just athletically there at that second level. And Micah Parsons to me makes the most sense at number 11 if he's available.
I like Parsons, and I would not like to see him wearing a Giants uniform. I can tell you that much because I think he's going to be excellent. What about offensive line for them? I would imagine they're in play there too, no?
Oh, they're always in play for the Giants. The Giants, the Vikings, and the Bengals are always teams that seem to have perpetual issues with the offensive line. So, I mean, they're always going to be. Rashawn Slater will be in the conversation. I still think it's a little early for Darisaw, but those are a couple guys that I certainly can see in contention there. But I still think that'd be a little bit of a reach for the tackle there, Darisaw. I would say Slater or Michael Parsons.
On the latest Inside the Birds podcast, Adam Kaplan said that the Lions had the 7th pick, want to move down. If you're Howie Roseman and you're calling the Lions, it's to move up for what?
Well, it would have to be an offensive skill player, in my opinion. A blue chip guy and still at 7, it's still a risk because will a Jamar Chase be available? Will Kyle Pitts be available? That's far from a certainty. Kyle Pitts could go as high as 4, and Jamar Chase could go 6, could very easily go 6. And I think if you're going to move up and give up that kind of capital, I think that you're only doing so for 2 guys that are going to be, bona fide studs, all pros, and kind of lead one of those type of careers. Those are the only 2 guys that I would find to be, worth moving up for.
All right, Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4 here, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. As we take a look at what might happen tonight. You heard some of the questions he still has. The Eagles moving up or down. That remains to be seen. We know. But Lawrence 1, who goes 2 in your mind?
In my opinion, it's going to be Zach Wilson, but I think that it should be.
Okay.
I think it's going to be Zach Wilson, but I think it should be Justin Fields.
I was going to say, who should it be?
Justin Fields. Justin Fields is a better quarterback.
So we go back to then, if Fields is on the board at 12, the Eagles have to take him?
I think you strongly have to consider it. I don't think that there's any chance that he's. You know what? I hate speaking in absolutes. I think it's very unlikely that he would be available at 12. I think then you're Howie Roseman. You're going to start entertaining phone calls, and then you're going to have a lot of teams looking to move up, such as the Patriots at 15, the Chicago Bears at 20. I mean, the Eagles would be in a very desirable spot.
If they trade up to 7, do they have to take Fields?
I think that why would you do that? Why would you trade up unless you're sure that he's an upgrade, a substantial upgrade over Jalen Hurts? Why would you do so for another quarterback? I mean, I would always surround your current quarterback with the proper weapons that he needs to be successful.
Yeah. I'm just kind of listening to your saying they shouldn't take Wilson, that Fields should be the number 2. So I'm going off that by thinking, well, if he's the second best quarterback, but
if they're completely not sold on Jalen Hurts, that's the only way that would make sense. But I still think that you're going to have to give up a king's ransom just to get up there as it is. So you need to be 100% sure that Jalen Hurts isn't the guy and that Justin Fields is the guy.
Gotcha. Lawrence 1, Wilson 2, Mac Jones 3. Would you take him 3?
No, I would not. I would go Trey Lance.
I love just getting your reactions. The first time I asked you about Mac Jones, you're the whoa. That was great. And now here, even on draft day, that it looks like it could be a realistic. Do you think that it's all a smokescreen and they go with somebody else?
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if it goes Zach Wilson at 2 and either Trey Lance. I think it's probably going to be Trey Lance, but Trey Lance or Justin Fields at 3. I think it is a smokescreen. And you talk about what's a smokescreen, what's real. I mean, you have to sort of decipher between the two. And I think in this particular case, Mike, I just don't see how any team could fathom or could think that Mac Jones is a better quarterback than Justin Fields or Trey Lance.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, number 4. In the InsideTheBirds.com mock draft, you went with Kyle Pitts. Do you think they take Pitts or they trade?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I think they're going to probably hang tight and maximize that window for Matt Ryan and give him that versatile offensive weapon to pair with Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones. And I think that if you're going to make a final run, a final push at Matt Ryan, it would make a lot of sense. And when you, obviously, as we talked about here before, Pitts is not just a tight end. He's a weapon that you can move around the entire offense, going to add another dimension to that offense. So, I mean, I think that would make a great deal of sense there. Also, quarterback possibly there as well. So you talk about Matt Ryan getting up there in age.
All right. Now, this was Inside the Birds. You guys did a mock draft, you, Mosher, and Kaplan. So Cincinnati, Mosher went with Chase. Kaplan went with Penei Sewell, which I think is a mistake. Cincinnati has to take Penei Sewell, don't they? They have to, Andrew.
Yes.
I implore them to. I implore them to.
I agree with you, and I agreed with Adam on that night where we did that. It just makes too much sense. Protect your quarterback. You already saw what having a paltry offensive line can do to you got to protect your investment, right? I mean, Joe Burrow is your guy. You owe it to him to give him the proper protection. And I think the Bengals cannot afford to botch this one. Don't overthink it. Grab Sewell, plug him right in, and then start to build that offensive line the correct way.
Totally agree. All right, Miami goes Sewell. Up next, you took Jalen Waddle for Detroit. So Detroit gets into the wide receiver game here in your mind.
Yeah, I mean, they can go a number of ways as well, but when you look at their receiving core, Brashad Perryman, Tyrell Williams, those are two guys that, they're a little bit banged up. You don't want to go into a season with them as your starting wide receivers. I mean, that's a recipe for disaster. And Waddle adds speed. He can affect all 3 levels of the field. He's just an explosive player. He would make a ton of sense there. I know a lot of people that prefer Waddle over Devontae Smith, so it certainly would be a nice pick for Detroit if they were able to come away with him.
All right. Up next, Carolina. Kaplan went with Schlater, the guard, at 8 for Carolina. Mosher took Fields for Denver. I would imagine Fields would be ecstatic if that is the case. And then you went with Patrick Surtain. So in this mock draft, you think they like Surtain more than they like Horn?
Yeah, well, I mean, I also think that Carolina would be a contender for a Patrick Surtain, and I thought that Horn would be available for Dallas. So, I mean, it all depends. Like, I didn't necessarily think that Patrick Surtain would be there at that particular spot. So, and that's gonna. And if the Eagles, like I say, if the Eagles really want one of these guys, Mike, don't just assume that one of them's going to be there at 12. You're going to have to get in front of the Dallas Cowboys to secure them.
All right, and then Micah Parsons to the Giants. Adam Kaplan took J.C. Horn to Philadelphia. So let's jump you into that spot at 12. Your official pick with what's in your mind. Forget what happened in this mock draft. Who does Philadelphia take at number 12?
Well, based on the way I sort of foresee the board shaking out, I think the Eagles are going to take Rashawn Slater.
Rashawn Slater, the guard from Northwestern. Now, I said this earlier. I think there'll be a lot of broken TVs tonight if that happens, right?
Yeah, but, kind of just given the Eagles' history and their propensity to build through the trenches, and I think that they're going to sit there and say, we love his versatility. We can plug him in at guard, et cetera, et cetera. But, I mean, even still, if you're taking a guard at 12 is a little egregious, but I mean, that kind of fits what the Eagles, look for, and they like to build through the trenches. And I can certainly see that happening if the corners go a little bit earlier than they think. Or, like I said, if they don't like the value, if they're not crazy about that, if they don't go Slater, I could see them trading down and going with getting a corner in the form of Greg Newsome the second, or possibly a Kwity Paye, which Kwity Paye would not excite the fan base much like Rashawn Slater.
All right, there you go. Andrew DiCecco, football at 4. He thinks Rashawn Slater will be the pick for the Eagles at number 12. And, of course, he, like all guests, appear via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. I don't think the Eagles fans would be happy about that, but probably a smart, solid pick. I particularly don't like an offensive lineman at number 12. If you trade back and get one, I'm a little better with it. I think their offensive line can get them through this year. You can always find a good, solid guy in the draft. Lineman's a spot that you can get guys. The Eagles are good at finding guys later in the draft, but I kind of understand that's the way they have built this thing. So we'll recap it all tomorrow here on the Sports Bash. All right, Andrew, enjoy the draft tonight, pal.
You too, Mike. Talk to you soon.
All right, and he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Draft coverage here on the Sports Bash. It's brought to you by GMS Law. Make the right call. 4 convenient locations to serve you. Online, gmslaw.com. All right, I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. Jeff Kerr in the 5 o'clock hour. We'll go through it all the picks, all the potential. And Aaron Rodgers, could he be on the move? By the way, Phil's, we'll get into what happened last night, because Hector Neris just got a little retaliation. I'll tell you why this is all just antiquated and Neanderthal-like. Coming up. All right, 428. So the Phillies lose in extra innings. Hector Neris did retaliate and got revenge for last night. Bryce Harper got hit in the face, and Didi Gregorius got one in the ribs. So Neris retaliates today in the ninth, and the Phillies lost. Last night, no retaliation, and the Phillies won. This antiquated style of you've got to get revenge is hilarious. The Phillies won the game last night. If they would have won the game today, the Cardinals had a pitcher who, by the way, has no business being in the majors. All right? The guy pitching last night has no business being in the majors. And because of the rule that you have to keep the guy out there for 3 hitters, that's the only reason they left him in the game last night. He hits Bryce Harper in the face, and then he hits Didi Gregorius in the ribs. Now, I would love for anybody to tell me what reason that pitcher had to hit Harper in the face and then follow up and hit Gregorius in the ribs. And this baseball lore that some people continue to live by, that you have to retaliate and you have to hit one of their guys. Girardi wasn't even suggesting to do that. See, Girardi gets it. He's won a World Series. He understands that Neanderthal caveman style of thinking is out the window. He just wanted the guy tossed from the game, which I have no problem with. So today, Neris ends up plucking Nolan Arenado. He goes to first base. They get out of the inning, and it's all over with. What did that really accomplish? These two teams don't play against each other again. The Phillies lost the game today, so now they can kind of say, yay, we hit a guy, and now we're even Steven. Do we really feel that the pitcher from the Cardinals threw at the guys purposely? Can we, is it enough already? Like, is this a way that we're proving our manhood, that we hit a guy with a baseball because your guy hit our guy the night before and then we didn't do anything about it? The Phillies won the game last night. That's what they did about it. Their pitcher had to suffer through that inning. He got yanked as soon as he was allowed to, and you beat them. Isn't that enough? Like, nonverbal communication is the strongest form sometimes. And not saying anything ticks off the other team more. You retaliating essentially shows that it got to under your skin. I say all the time, right? And retaliation stuff to me is for people who have no self-confidence. Retaliation stuff for me is the definition of being soft to begin with. People who allow what the other team does to dictate what they want to do, it shows that they have now gotten under your skin. Be confident in your ability. People who show the need to retaliate, it shows a lack of self-confidence. Be confident. Know that you're better. Don't drop down to the less confident person's level. That's what the Phillies did today, and they lost the game. Now, them hitting Nolan Arenado didn't have anything to do with why they lost the game. It also didn't accomplish anything. Do we really think that teams are sitting there lining up saying, oh, man, we're going to hit every hitter on the Phillies because they didn't do anything about it? Yeah, in 1976, sure. The game has changed. Trevor Bauer is the best pitcher in baseball, or one of them. He's the current Cy Young Award winner. So, therefore, right now you can label him as the best pitcher in baseball. And even Trevor Bauer is at the point where he thinks it's ridiculous. All the talk last night about the fact that these guys got hit by a pitch and that they, aren't allowed to retaliate because of the fact that the umpire gave the two teams a warning. So if they gave them a warning and somebody from the Phillies hit somebody on their team, they would have been thrown out of the game. And the Phillies, of course, don't want to get a guy thrown out or suspended. The Phillies won the game. Their guy got pulled from the game. He got pulled the second the coach was allowed to get him out of the game. The second he was allowed to pull him, they took him out of the game. You have to face 3 hitters now. Now, you can make an argument that the umpire should have thrown the guy out immediately, and that's what Girardi was arguing. Girardi said, look, he should be thrown out. He didn't say my guy should throw at him because guess what? It didn't happen last night. So what? Your guy got suspended. You want to prove a point? You can still do that. The Phillies, great. They got retribution today. You looked ridiculous. And people are going crazy. Herrick Daenerys is my favorite guy. Yeah. Until he blows his first save at Citizens Bank Park and the place boos him unmercifully. Do you think they'll remember that Hector Neris was the guy that hit Nolan Arenado in the 9th inning of a game you lost? Right? Do you see how stupid this sounds? The second Hector Neris serves up a home run, yeah, don't boo Neris. He's the guy that hit Nolan Arenado with 2 outs in the 9th of a game we lost. It sounds preposterous. It is preposterous. Right? It's ridiculous. So, and I don't know, like the Phillies did not play Harper today. They did not play Didi today. Who knows if it's because I'm imagining Harper was because of they're just being he said he was fine. He probably could have played today. He was on video last night saying he was okay, so he's not hurt. Didi has been hurt a little bit. I can't imagine he's not playing today because he got hit in the ribs. You ever get hit in the ribs? You're not missing a game because you got hit in the ribs. So he stayed in the game last night. I don't think the Phillies, I think they didn't play today because there was a night game last night. Right? They played last night. They gave them the day off today. I don't think because they got hit last night. Guys get hit with a pitch. You think Nolan Arenado's not playing tomorrow because Hector Neris hit him? Come on. Like, Trevor Bauer right now is, as I said, the reigning Cy Young Award winner. And he essentially said this about what's going on.
I like it. I think that pitchers who have that done to them and react by throwing at people, I think it's pretty soft. If you give up a homer, a guy should celebrate it. You know, it's hard to hit in the big leagues. So I'm all for it. And I think it's important that, you know, the game moves in that direction and we stop throwing at people because they celebrated having some success on the field.
Now, he was talking about guys who give up home runs and then, you know, a guy celebrates running around the bases and that you should throw at that guy afterwards. And essentially he's saying, why? I just gave up a home run. How ridiculous does that sound? Why would I throw at a guy who beat me? He hit the ball over the fence. A pitch that came out of my hand, he hit over the fence. Why are we throwing at that guy? Bauer's correct. The outrage last night is just mystifying. Now, if Bryce Harper is out for an extended period of time, which I doubt, he seemed to be okay. If Didi Gregorius is out for an extended period of time, I can understand being upset, and maybe that's a different situation. I don't even know who the pitcher's name was. I never even heard of the guy. I don't think he purposely threw at Bryce Harper. I don't think he purposely threw at Didi Gregorius. I think he just sucks. He's hit 10 batters in his career. The guy's just not very good. You notice that the second that he hit, the second his 3 batters was up, they couldn't get off the bullpen, the step fast enough to get him out of the game. You know, Cabrera, I just don't think he's got very good control. I mean, does anybody out there think Cabrera legitimately was throwing at Harper and Didi? Now, if you think that yes is the answer, that's a different thing. Then you think, yes, he was legitimately throwing at him. Yeah, it's an unfortunate situation. But I don't think the answer is to have this Mickey Mouse game of, hey, I'm going to hit you, you hit me, we got revenge. You didn't get revenge. You lost the game today. Notice they didn't use Aaron Nola to get the job done, right? So you have the unfortunate situation of having to pick and choose when you want to do this. So you didn't really get the revenge that you wanted. You had to wait your turn to do it because, we can't get these guys suspended, so let's just pick when we feel like doing it. You didn't prove anything then. If you want to get the retaliation and send the message, you got to do it on the same day, right away. Not 24 hours later with the guy that you strategically picked to do it. And quite frankly, don't do it anyway. Have enough self-confidence to know you're a loser. You did it to me. I'm not stooping down to your level to get this done. We beat you last night. Part of the reason why is because your team has a guy who doesn't have control. Bauer is right. And look, this is coming from someone in myself who I don't like the way the game's going right now. Too many strikeouts. Batting average 232. Talked about it on Monday. Game's in a terrible place. Guys can't hit. But if the game is changing on that side, on the field, it's time for it to change with these things off the field. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Sports Bash here. A couple text messages coming in. Mike, a brushback all-speed pitch would send the same message as actually plunking the guy. Well, maybe. Mike, that's baseball. Have to disagree here. And a lefty on the mound could have played into it. The guy was lefty. He hit two lefty batters. Their pitcher was a lefty. He hit both Harper and Didi, both left-handed batters. Hey, look, I get it. That's baseball. It's not baseball, though. It doesn't have – okay, that was baseball. Guess what else baseball was? Not striking out every time up. You know what else baseball was? Stealing a base and hitting and running and bunting and moving runners over and hitting the other way. That's not part of the game anymore. So these things don't need to be part of the game either. Right? So you throw a guy at a player so a bunch of guys can come out of the dugout and stand and act like they're yelling at each other in front of – come on, what's that accomplishing? Really? You got a bunch of guys standing around home plate. Nobody's doing anything. They're just kind of standing out there to act like, oh, we did something. You didn't do anything. Yes, we did. You threw at me. I threw back at you. Ah! That's essentially what happens. All right, coming up, Jeff Kerr, 5 o'clock hour here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. This hour of the show, it is brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bets and take your profit. Find out how at PropSwap.com or download the PropSwap app today. Good PropSwap opportunities with the NFL draft. You can do PropSwap all draft long. A lot of fun. And by the way, somebody sent me a tweet at Mike Gill Show. It's not so much about retaliation. It's about having your team's back, creating stronger unity inside the clubhouse. You know what's funny? I hear that all the time. What did they say last night? That it brought the team closer together about what happened last night. They didn't retaliate last night. The team won the game. They came out and won the game. Batalico said today, I think that moment made them stronger. That the fact that the manager went out there, proved his point. He went out there and stood up for the team. So, look, everybody in the clubhouse is smart enough to understand. Would they like to do it? Do they want to send that message? Maybe. But they also know in today's landscape, that's not the way you prove the point. You prove points differently than you do in 1998, in 2021. So sometimes, as the tweet says, sometimes that is more important than winning the game early. But they won the game last night, bringing the team closer together because their manager stepped up for them. The manager went and got thrown out. That was the retaliation. The manager showed them, I understand, I got your back, go out there and win the game. There's a reason why Girardi wins a World Series, and the people commenting on him are talking about a team that has the most losses in the history of modern sports. With that mentality, That's why the Phillies constantly stink, because our mentality is, as a fan base, to get retaliation and not get the win. Back with more. All right, 448 Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN. If you're watching the show live, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, keep the comments coming in. We'll continue to pop them up on the screen. Brian Brooks says, on purpose or not, they knocked out the Phillies' number 3 and number 5 hitter for at least one game. The Cardinals dictated the Phillies lineup today. I think a day game after a night game versus a lefty may have dictated the lineup a little bit. I don't know that Harper would have played. I think Girardi just said that he was cleared to play. He has been cleared of a concussion and everything, but they want to get him back to Philly, and they have a day off tomorrow. They had a lefty pitching today. Didi Gregorius, same thing. He said that he was loose and could have played, but I think the day game after a night game. By the way, the Cardinals started a lefty pitcher today, so keep that in mind. Kim started the game. He's a lefty. So I think the Phillies had the day game after the night. They had a lefty pitching. They both got hit last night. I don't know that you would have saw both those guys definitively in the lineup anyway. Maybe. By the way, the Phillies scored 3 runs today with Aaron Nola on the mound. How about that? And we're acting like the Phillies scored a lot of runs anyway. They scored about what they score. 3. They scored 3 runs today with Aaron Nola on the mound. I think it was, hey, look, Nola's pitching, lefty versus lefty, day after night. The guys got hit last night. I mean, it might have had a factor into why they didn't play, but you scored 3 runs with your ace on the mound. It's another example of where Aaron Nola has to close that series out. They had a lead in the game, 1-0, and then it was 3-1. They give up a pinch hit home run that I believe is on the pitcher, not on the St. Louis Cardinals hitting your guy the night before. That is a game where you have your ace pitching, and he has to do a better job in that situation. Now, Girardi said just moments ago he's taking the blame. He intentionally walked Carpenter or Sosa, and then Carpenter comes up and hits a 3-run home run, hitting for Kim. Hey, listen, I'm not sitting here telling you that the Cardinals are in the right. The guy hits the batter. I get it. That's what baseball dictates. Did it affect the game today? Maybe. I mean, maybe Harper's out for a game, but I don't think Arenado's missing any time. You don't play that team again. I don't know what was accomplished. I don't think other teams around the league are saying, well, the Phillies didn't do anything there. I think they understand within the rules of today's games, that's what happens. Again, it's about evolution in sports. Rich in the Village says, I usually like your take on things. Totally disagree with you here. Stop bringing up Bauer. 2 different scenarios. Oh, I know it's 2 different scenarios. I'm talking his mindset. The scenario is different. I'm talking about the mindset of how the game is changing. That's the point that I'm making, is that the mindset from the pitcher is, if you hit a home run off of me, go ahead and celebrate. You beat me on that. The point that I'm making is the game is changing. The game has changed from bunting, hitching and running, hitting the other way, all of that out of the game. All of these other things about baseball is changing, but we want to hold on to these, I don't even know what they are, these unwritten rules. So, yeah, Bauer is not the same scenario, Rich. The point I'm making is that everything about the game is changing. Rich went on to say, I don't think he did it intentionally. That doesn't mean that we don't send a message back at their best players. For traditionalists, you just don't get it. I do get it. I just don't think the message, what did the Cardinals get out of that? Nolan Arenado got hit. He went to first base. Okay, now what? I get it. I just don't understand what is accomplished there. So all of a sudden, you think the Wild West is going to happen and pitchers are just going to start beaming Phillies players every night of the week and putting guys on base in a game that essentially wants to keep guys off the bases? We're going to put you on the base. I don't agree with that. That's all I'm saying. I don't think that a team hitting your guy and then like you hitting their guy back the day after in the 9th inning with 2 outs. I guess maybe you feel that sent a message. I don't think so. I don't think that really accomplished much. So, yeah, the game is changing. The point is with Bauer, when I bring up Bauer, it's the pitcher's mindset has changed. You hit a home run off me, go ahead and celebrate. That's different. Today's game, pitch counts, exit velo, launch angle, all of these things are different than the game that you're talking about. So, yeah, in 1985, in 1995, in 2005, these are all things that probably made more sense. In today's game, it probably didn't accomplish all that much. And by the way, to this text message, dead wrong, Mike. Just because baseball is different doesn't mean it's better. I didn't say it's better. I told you it's worse. I think the game stinks. I think the game's terrible now. I think the game absolutely stinks. I don't play it, and neither do you. So at Major League Baseball level. So I'm just telling you, today's players don't agree with your mindset or Rich in the Villa's mindset. That's the point I'm making. You as a fan, this is what you were brought up on, and this is what you know. I'm saying these players, I don't think they look down upon the rest of the players for not doing anything here. That's the point I'm making, is that their mindset has changed too. Most of these guys, they didn't watch the game growing up in the 90s and stuff. Neris goes up, and he basically, and I guess the manager of the Cardinals came out, and he understood, hey, that obviously he hit a guy with 2 outs in the 9th, and now this is over. We finished it off. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. All right, coming up next hour, Jeff Kerr. We'll get into the draft. And Jersey P says you don't throw at someone's face. Yeah, no, you don't. But I don't think he purposely threw at Harper's face. I just think he has terrible control. He's got 10 hit batsmen in his career. He's just not a very good pitcher. But you're right. No, you don't throw at someone's face. All right, coming up, Kerr, next hour. A lot of draft conversation. All the scenarios, we'll spin them your way. Aaron Rodgers going to be traded. That coming up as well. All right, 5 o'clock hour, draft day is here. We've got draft coverage for you right up until 7 o'clock when the NFL draft hits our airwaves on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Want to remind you, the Sports Bash is brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bets and take your profit. Find out how at PropSwap.com. Download the PropSwap app today. All right, the Eagles are on the clock at number 12 tonight. We have so much to dive into. Final mock drafts, final look at everything here. So what I want you guys out there to do is hit me up with your draft questions. Jeff Kerr at 525. Aaron Rodgers could be traded. That would be interesting. Also, we've got news that Tim Tebow could be coming back. That's not as big news, but kind of interesting. So what is your draft thoughts right now, hours before the draft? Here's what I have just heard coming out of this break here is basically a lot of people feel that the Eagles could go wide receiver or corner. But according to a report on the NFL Network, that there is another position that the Eagles are valuing and that it is something that don't be surprised if they go with on draft night. That to me screams offensive line. That to me screams, and I've been kind of saying this. Look, I have said I am not a fan of taking an offensive lineman if I'm the Philadelphia Eagles. I feel the Eagles do not need an offensive lineman in this particular draft. Find out if Lane Johnson can play. Find out if Brandon Brooks can play. Find out who can play left tackle. Is it Dillard? Is it Jordan Mailata? That offensive line, if healthy, is a offensive line that should be able to give Jalen Hurts a fair opportunity. If you have those guys on your offensive line, you should have a fair opportunity to evaluate your quarterback. Panero TV is watching on YouTube, says, I wouldn't be mad at Slater. He's going to be really good, and that's all I care about at this point. No way Kwity Paye or some other I'm smarter than you pick. All right, let's break that down. Slater, I believe, is very much in play here, Panero. I definitely think that Kwity Paye is also in play. If Slater is gone, now there's a lot of talk about right now leading into the draft that Slater and Elijah Very Tucker could be into the top 12. I talked about this with Ryan Roberts earlier in the show. It feels like the offensive linemen are moving further up the board. Teams understand that offensive line is how you build championships. The Kansas City Chiefs were a clear favorite to win the Super Bowl until their offensive line absolutely destroyed that opportunity. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive line was simply better than the Kansas City Chiefs, and that was the difference in the game. The Philadelphia Eagles offensive line was better than the New England Patriots, and it simply was the reason the Eagles were better on that day than the Patriots. And by the way, it's simply the reason why the Eagles were 13-3 in their Super Bowl season. They had the best offensive line in the game. The Minnesota Vikings had one of the worst offensive lines in the game. That's why they lost. Here's another thing. We talk about this. Skill players versus foundations. Offensive line, defensive line. And I'm telling you with full disclosure, I do not want the Eagles to draft an offensive lineman at 12. If they go back, here's the problem. I don't think an offensive lineman will be back there now. I don't think there will be an offensive lineman that is back there at 15, 17. 17 would be the Raiders. 19 would be Washington. 20 would be Chicago. I don't think you're getting one back there. Doug, I agree. Ertz will not be an Eagle after tonight. I think you'll see it. Maybe not after tonight. It might be tomorrow. It might be Saturday. But I think by the end of this draft, Ertz will probably be traded. Harris, this question was earlier for Andrew. We didn't get to it, but do you think the Eagles could make a trade with Denver and offer to take Drew Lock off their hands and swap spots with giving them a third-round pick and select Surtain or Horn? Well, I don't know that getting Drew Lock off their hands does much for either team here, but I think Denver's in play at 9, Harris, definitely. I think Philadelphia is in play at 7, 8, and 9. I definitely think 7 with Detroit, 8 with Carolina, and 9 with Denver. Those 3 spots are definitely in play for Howie Roseman to make a call. 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. Hit me up on the text board. If you're watching the show live, keep your comments coming. Beth, do you think the Panthers take Surtain, then we trade with Denver and take Horn and leave Dallas to take the lesser talented corner? Well, we can't verify that that's the lesser talented corner. I personally like Horn a little better than I like Patrick Surtain. Early in this process where the Eagles had 6, I like Patrick Surtain better. The more research and tape that I watch, I tend to like Horn a little bit better. I think it's whatever flavor of ice cream you like. They're both very big and physical. I like them both. I just think Horn will be a better cover 2 corner than Patrick Surtain might be. Remember, Nnamdi Asomugha was a great corner in Oakland, and he stunk in Philadelphia. Sometimes scheme matters. Not that Patrick Surtain couldn't come in here and play very well in the cover 2. I think he would be a good cover 2 corner too. I just like Patrick. I like J.C. Horn a little better. Now, full disclosure, I like Patrick Surtain better at the beginning. When the Eagles had 6, I said I would take him at 6. So after doing more research and watching more of the 2 guys, I changed. I like what I've seen of J.C. Horn more. Not much, but enough for me to say at 12, I would not much rather. Look, if you end up with either one of those guys, I'm okay with it. Patrick Surtain, okay with. J.C. Horn, okay with. Here's a message from Inars Litis watching on YouTube. Could the Eagles actually trade up for Fields or Lance, I'm imagining that's supposed to say, end up with the quarterback they, quote, wanted and next year's first-round pick? Inars, sadly, I think this is all too much of a possibility. I think the Eagles could trade up and take one of those 2 guys. And if it's Justin Fields, I wouldn't be shocked. If we're sitting here tomorrow, I'm going to say about 4 statements. And Josh, I want you to get involved and I want you to write these down. Okay? All right. Well, don't forget. I'm going to write 4 things down that will not surprise me. 1, the Eagles would trade up to take Fields. And they would do so at number 7. I would not be shocked if that happened. And the reason is they value him too much. What happened last year? Jalen Hurts was on the board, and they simply said we couldn't pass him up. If they feel that they have the draft capital, the points on the board to get Fields, I think they would do it. So these are things that would not shock me. A trade up for Fields. I'm writing in red marker, so I can't read it. I'm going to have to get a better pen. I had a good pen, by the way. I don't know what I did with it. What else would not shock me? If they take a quarterback, man, how about what a kick in the scrotum it would be if they took the same a guy from the same college as Wentz. I don't think they take Lance. I think it's Fields that they like. 2, if they stay at 12, I've said this before, if they stay at 12, they take a corner. The problem is now becoming, as we've talked throughout the day, there's a good possibility that the corners are not on the board at 12. And that is something that concerns me. Because I have said before, if they stay at 12, they take a corner. If they move up, it's because they went for somebody like Fitz or Fields. But now I'm thinking that Rashawn Slater is heavily in play at number 12. So the 4 things. 1, do not be surprised if they trade up and took Fields. That's number 1. I think that is very much in play. Okay? Do you concur with that possibility? Do you think that is a possibility? My trusty producer, Josh, who watches a lot of college football, and I know is going to be talking a lot of draft tonight. He has Fitzsimmons coming up, and he's doing a live video stream right here on 97.3 ESPN.com's YouTube channel. So that possibility, trade up for Fields, I think it's a possibility.
I think it's the least likely of all of your ideas.
Well, I didn't even give it another one yet.
Well, you gave 3.
No, I gave 1.
No, you gave 3.
No. I have said that Horner, Surtain, whatever corners there at 12.
Oh, the Slater point wasn't 3?
No, I haven't given 2 yet.
Okay, then I miswrote it.
1. These are the things that I would not be shocked with. Those things wouldn't shock me at all. If they just took Horn at 12 or Surtain at 12, whatever corners there, I think they would take.
Okay.
That wouldn't surprise me. The Rashawn Slater thing would be if those 2 guys are off the board. Okay. So the things that would shock me or would not shock me that are shocking, I guess is how I should put it. Right?
Yes.
Trading up and taking Fields. That I can see happening.
I have trouble wrapping my head around that idea because to me, what that says to me is that your organization lacks legitimate direction. Because there's a huge difference between, hey, we can get Aaron Rodgers, let's do it, and trading up for a quarterback who draft evaluators more and more are saying that Hurts and Fields are similar. So what are you trading up for? An upgrade of Jalen Hurts, I guess?
Yeah. All right. 2. This wouldn't shock me either, and I can see it happening. The Eagles trade back out of that spot, and they do it, and they take one of the secondary players, corner, because this is my reasoning. They want to get another first-round pick next year. I believe that in my heart of hearts, that Roseman is on that phone, as I said earlier in the week. He is on the phone with every quarterback-needy team. That was a report. But I'm telling you, he is on that phone. And if I'm sitting here on the radio telling you this, he's got to do it. He's smarter. Well, some people would not say that, but does he know more than me? Does Howie Roseman know more than me? I'm not really sure about that. I think I'd be pretty good at that job. That being said, he's probably a better capologist, and I'm not good with numbers. Numbers is not my game.
Right.
But that said, if I'm Howie Roseman right now, I am on the phone constantly. I am constantly badgering these teams. New England, Chicago, Las Vegas, Washington, New Orleans, Pittsburgh. Those 6 teams off the top of my head. I am on the call, on the phone with those 6 teams, and I am asking over and over and over for a first-round pick next year.
Well, listen, you know that Diana Messina came out with a report earlier today that the New Orleans Saints are trying to trade up as high as they can to get a player who's not a quarterback, too.
Fine.
So that could also be in play for the
By
Eagles.
the way, where are they picking? 24th, 28th?
I think it's 26 or 27. I got to double check.
Well, one of those spots, you need to give up a first-round pick for me to move that far.
Correct. You have to. And by
the
way,
question is New Orleans' first-round pick going to be as attractive, you know?
Well, listen, if you walk into next year's draft with 4 first-round picks, who cares what round where they are in the first round? You own the draft next year.
Yeah, you would have 4 picks.
Right. So who cares if it's 28, 26, 22?
I just feel that that's a pretty far way to drop in this year's draft.
Listen,
that's
the Saints have done it before. They gave up a lot to get Marcus Davenport.
Yeah.
So we know Mickey Loomis.
No, I'm just saying, I feel like giving up from 6 to 12 to 28 is a lot just to add another first-round pick next year.
It is a lot. But at the same time, you just said it yourself that if Howie Roseman feels that strongly about it, then what's going to stop him?
Believe me, nothing would surprise me at this point. But these are the things that I think could happen that we shouldn't be surprised by. Trading up for Fields, trading back further to get another first-round pick. Now, the third thing would be, Kwity Paye to me is right up the Eagles' alley.
Right.
They only have, Josh, you look at their roster, they've got Brandon
4
Graham.
defensive ends, right?
If you really look at their depth chart at defensive end, They got nothing there.
Brandon Graham, Derek Barnett, Josh Sweat, and there's one other guy I'm forgetting. Well, they turned Jared Everett into a linebacker, so I can't count him anymore.
No, that's it. That's all. Their current depth chart has Derek Barnett, Josh Sweat, Matt Leo,
the international guy. I forgot about him.
Brandon Graham, and Joe Osman.
Oh my God.
That's it.
Joe Osman under a futures contract. I forgot about him too.
That's it. So you can make an argument that, yes, they're top heavy with Graham and Barnett and Sweat, that those three guys are acceptable, but they have no depth at that position whatsoever. And Brandon Graham is in the back end of his deal. Derek Barnett, I think, is in the last year of his deal. Brandon Graham's 33 years old. I keep thinking to myself, do you just trade back and take Kwity Paye?
He's been rumored a lot to the Eagles, and it's a strong possibility that he would be in the conversation for them. The question is, you talked with Jason Fitz about this earlier, and that is because some of these guys opted out, it's hard to tell where some of these guys are going to go. So guys like Kwity Paye, who actually played this year in a draft class where the pass rushers are a little bit of an unknown, is he the first guy? Is he not the first guy? I feel like it's like you said, flavor of the month. Are you a Kwity Paye guy or are you a Rousseau guy?
Well, and you keep hearing Kwity Paye being compared to Brandon Graham, that a lot of people look at him in a very similar size and build and style of play, and the Eagles like to go with what they know, man. We had Brandon Graham. He was a successful Michigan defensive end here. He helped us win a Super Bowl. Let's find his replacement by going right down the same road. What did they do when they went to hire their head coach? Let's bring in the guy who was just like Andy Reid. Okay, we got rid of that guy. Let's bring in the guy that was just like Frank Reich. Okay, let's bring in the defensive end that's going to be just like Brandon Graham. Like, to me, they do a lot of things on, hey, we tried. People always say, the Eagles always feel they're the smartest in the room. I think sometimes they just try to go off their script a little bit, but when they stick to their script is when they do really well. That's when they win. They stick to their script, that's when they win. So that's why I'm a little inclined to think a trade back for Kwity Paye. That's my number 3 thing that we could see happen tonight.
Okay.
That would probably, these are the things that would make people mad, I guess I should say. Wouldn't you be mad if you're an Eagles fan if they traded up for Justin Fields? You should be.
I would be confused. That's for sure.
Well, I want to play the bite that Sal Pal told us on Friday's show, on Sal Pal Friday, and he'll be back on tomorrow's show. But this is what he said about what they are telling him inside the NovaCare complex.
The feeling that I get in talking to people on background in NovaCare is that they feel like they can compete in the division this year.
They feel that they can compete in the division this year. Now, he also went on to say this about getting that division title.
They don't want to take shortcuts, meaning build from the inside out, stay to the core values that they had when they drafted Fletcher Cox, they drafted Payne Johnson, they drafted Brandon Graham, they drafted Jason Kelsey, who are the cornerstones of the trenches of the football team.
And those guys all the way were drafted by Howie Roseman, except for Brandon Graham, I would say. Fletcher Cox, Jason Kelsey. You look at the group of linemen, Lane Johnson. You look at what this team has built their Super Bowl championship on. They did it on the offensive line, having the best offensive line in football, and build it on the defensive line, having Chris Long and Brandon Graham and Derek Barnett wasn't there yet. I can't believe 4 years
Vinny
ago.
Curry.
Vinny Curry was on that team. Having the rotation of defensive ends and being able to just constantly rotate Fletcher Cox, you look at that was their strong suit. And I feel like they're going to go back to what they know. That's all. All right, we'll get the picks coming up. Jeff Kerr's on the other side. Stick around. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Sports Bash brought to you. Sorry, I needed to grab my little sheet over here. I want to tell you about my guys over at Trifecta Therapeutics, the premier sports rehab performance center. They're right in Glassboro. the only sports manual therapy fellowship trained doctor on staff in all of New Jersey. They always take a unique approach to physical therapy with rehab, and they find a variety of ways for everybody. You have that weekend warrior mentality, and you said, man, my shoulder's bothering me today. Trifecta Therapeutics. Check them out. They're in Glassboro. Find out more about the incredible team at Trifecta Therapeutics. And, of course, you can do so easily now. Use the password ESPN Radio to get a look for your free discovery session. Use code ESPN Radio at trifectatherapeutics.com. And they do it for everybody. Hey, if your son or daughter plays high school sports, maybe even a college sport, and something happened, you want to get a second look or get that second opinion, they have all sorts of athletes competing at the highest professional collegiate levels. Trifecta Therapeutics in Glassboro. Sports Bash, Jeff Kerr, next. All right, Jeff Kerr's in the house. Little NFL conversation. CBS Sports NFL writer Jeff Kerr joins us here for another look at the NFL draft. We've had Jeff on all week. We're going to do a lot more with Jeff throughout the offseason and into the Eagles season as well. So I'm looking forward to that. But I'm looking forward to Jeff's take on some of the – we talk about the BS meter here on this show, Jeff. Do you think that the Green Bay Packers would legitimately entertain offers for Aaron Rodgers?
They shouldn't trade Aaron Rodgers, but I don't think they're going to have a choice. I think Aaron Rodgers is basically telling them, I want out of here. I'm done. I'm tired of this. I saw what Tom Brady is doing. I saw what Peyton Manning did years ago. I want that. I want my second championship. I'm out of here.
All right. Who's in play? Who picks up the phone, Jeff? Who makes those calls? The Jets with number 2. San Francisco has number 3, but they have a –
San Francisco's called them already. So that's one.
Geez.
Denver Broncos.
Denver. I said Denver. They took Peyton Manning. We had John Elway. You fit perfectly into what we
yeah,
do.
And they need a quarterback. It's perfect. I mean, who cares? They only gave up a 6th-round pick for Teddy Bridgewater. They can do this. I mean, but here's the thing. If the Packers are turning down offers for the number 3 pick for Aaron Rodgers, if that's what's going on, or if the 49ers basically said no to that, what are we doing here? Like, the 49ers could have had Aaron Rodgers 16 years ago. They decided not to take him. They took Alex Smith. And Alex Smith ended up being a lot better.
That's the ultimate hindsight right there, right?
Yeah, exactly. You mentioned other teams, Mike. How about Carolina?
Yeah, I mean, do they trade Darnold to Green Bay? Is Green Bay interested in Darnold?
They might be. I'll give you one. This is a wild card, but I wouldn't be shocked. How about the Saints?
Yeah, that's a good one. I didn't think of that one myself. The Bears, but they're not going to trade in the division.
No, they won't. So I ruled them. Plus, the Bears would screw him up anyway. They screw every quarterback up. So
yeah, that's true. I mean, the Saints is a good one, though, and apparently they're looking to move up. The problem I have with the Saints is, though, I said this with the Eagles, their pick is too low. So if you're the Saints, because there's some reports they want to move into the top 12 or whatever, they want to move up, and it's not to draft a quarterback. Okay, I get your 28th pick. I'm assuming I get your pick next year too, but man, I've now gone from 6 to 12 to into the late 20s. I think that's too big of a fall. It's the 28th pick, and I know they would have to give up more for Aaron Rodgers, but is that enough to entice Green Bay?
I mean, if Green Bay isn't enticed by a number 3 pick, why would they be enticed by a 28th pick? Look, you're going to have to give Green Bay players to get this guy. You're going to have to give them about 4 first-round picks to get this guy. And look, Green Bay doesn't want first-round picks in the 20s here. They want picks. They want players. You're going to have to give the Packers something. Alvin Kamara is off the table, obviously. They got Aaron Jones. But what about, do the Saints have anything to offer them? Offensive lineman, maybe, like it's Ron Armstead? Is that kind of takes away the point? Cameron Jordan, does that take away, the point here? Like, it's got to be a team that has a lot of draft picks. And there are 2 or 3 teams that have a lot of draft picks. And one of them just happens to be one we're in the market of.
Well, okay. I was going to get to that. What about a team that has a lot of draft picks, Miami?
I'd say Miami does it. I mean, I know they love Tua, but they have the draft capital to do it, and they're built to win now. And Miami's not going to make a move like this.
They have the draft capital, and they can replace you. I mean, I don't know. Does Green Bay love Jordan Love? Do they want to turn things over to him right away, or would they take Tua in return? And is that like
I would take Tua over Jordan Love. Tua's going to be a good player in this league, but you have a chance to get Aaron Rodgers. If you get Aaron Rodgers, you're a Super Bowl contender. And that team won 10 games with the quarterback situation they had last year. Tua learning on the fly, and pretty much Ryan Fitzpatrick, the eternal journeyman.
Yeah, this fascinates the whole draft thing, because if it's as real as it sounds, the phones are ringing off the hook nonstop from now until 8 o'clock tonight. And what's to say that the Jets, don't get involved?
Why not? Like, if you're the Jets, who would you rather have, Aaron Rodgers or Zach Wilson or Justin Fields? I don't know. I think I'd rather take Aaron Rodgers.
And they have the draft capital, obviously, to make it happen. The Jets have a ton of picks. They can do that easily. So that's interesting. That's all in play. All right. Jeff, 12. What are the scenarios dancing in your head hours before the first pick. What is now going on?
They're trading up. They're going to trade up.
And what evidence or what tea leaves have you read that make you feel that way?
Well, for one, I don't think they want to be behind the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants. I think that is one of the reasons there. They already got the first-round pick. You're not going to have to trade a first-round pick to get back up into the top 9. So I think they do that. And again, this all depends on this whole Aaron Rodgers thing. If Denver can get Aaron Rodgers, then obviously pick 9's gone. But look, Detroit could be looking to move down. That's a possibility. I think 7's a little too rich for the Eagles' blood because they might have to give up a second to go to 7. But 8 in Carolina, that's very possible. So why not do that? So again, like I personally think the Eagles trade up to get. There's a certain amount of play or a certain 2 or 3 players I think they trade up to get. And 2 of actually, you know what? No, 3 of them go to Alabama. All 3 of them. Patrick Surtain, Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle. You have your pick.
I know we discussed a little bit, but I want to throw this into the mix again because Adam Kaplan mentioned today on the Inside the Birds podcast that he thinks Detroit wants to get out of 7. Does Howie make that call? And if he does he have to take Justin Fields?
I think Howie makes that call. I would take Justin Fields. Personally, I love Jalen Hurts, but I would take Justin Fields because I believe he's going to be the far superior quarterback. I think of the quarterbacks in this draft, not named Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields is going to be that Pro Bowler. He's going to be that guy to lead your franchise for the next 7 to 10 years minimum. I really think he's going to be that good. And I think in the Eagles system, that's perfect for him. So if he's there at 7, you get Justin Fields.
Yeah, Jalen's watching us on YouTube, says Inside the Bird said they won't roll out. Fields going to the Eagles. How likely do you think this is? I don't want a quarterback, but I think Fields is tremendous and undervalued. Sounds like what you're saying. Like if you can get him.
100%. Yeah, I really do. Like you can't rule this guy out. This is the one quarterback I feel you trade up for. Anybody else, if there's a quarterback at 12, you sit there. That's fine. But this is the guy. This is the one quarterback you take. You don't take Mac Jones. I like Mac Jones, but you don't trade up to take Mac Jones. You don't trade up to take, whoever it is, Davis Bill. You definitely don't do that. So, but Justin Fields, that is the guy. Not Trey Lance, not Zach Wilson, just not Mac Jones, Justin Fields. That's the guy. Or Trevor Lawrence, but he's not going past 1. So we all know that.
Blake Winters watching on Facebook. I want to trade back. I want Bateman. He's going to be the best wide receiver out of this bunch, not named Chase, in 5 years. Last year, that was the case. Ruggs and Judy and Lamb were the 3 guys everyone was talking about, and it turned out to be Jefferson was the best. Now everyone's talking about Waddle, Smith, and Chase. Is there another receiver that people aren't talking about enough that's better than one of those 3?
Well, first off, I'm going to say this before we even talk about trading down. These are people I've talked to. Devonta Smith and Jamar Chase are better than any of those receivers last year. If you put them in last year's draft class, they just are. They would have been going ahead of Henry Ruggs and Jerry Jeudy, and they were very, very good players in college. So let's just rule that out. But if I trade down.
Hold on, real quick. Say that one more time for people so they get a better indication because people hear what they want to hear sometimes. So I want you to reinforce that these 2 receivers in this draft are better than the 2 Alabama guys. The 2 Bama ones from this year are better than the 2 from last year.
They are. They're better. Smith, Waddle, and Jamar Chase from LSU. They're better. They just are better players. These are from people that I've discussed this with. It's if you put them in last year's draft class, they're the top 3. They just are. They're just that good. Like Jamar Chase would have easily been the number 1 wide receiver to go last year. Devontae Smith would have been number 2. At the minimum, number 3. That's just how good these guys are. These guys are franchise-changing wide receivers. They're difference makers. That's why a lot of people are projecting these 3 to go into the top 10. I mean, it doesn't look like that's going to happen because of the quarterbacks, but if you don't have 5 quarterbacks going this high, these 3 are, you might be talking about Jamar Chase at 3. You might be talking about Devonta Smith at 5 or Jalen Waddle at 8 or, mix and match between the 2 of them. You literally can't go wrong with these players. All these players are going to be very good football players. Now for the Rashad Bateman thing, I think he's going to be very good as well. I think Rashad Bateman is incredibly underrated. And as a Big Ten fan, I can tell you personally, Rashad Bateman is incredibly underrated. He'd be a great find in the 20s. As a matter of fact, if the Eagles go cornerback first, I would trade up to get Rashad Bateman. I would trade out of that number 30 and trade up.
I love that scenario. Get my corner at 12, trade back up, and get Bateman at wherever. I like that idea a lot. Let's go to Ponero TV, watching on YouTube TV. No, just YouTube, not TV. I have YouTube TV, different than YouTube people. I wouldn't be mad at Slater, he says. He's going to be really good, and that's all I care about at this point. No thanks on Kwity Paye or some other smarter than you pick. So let's break that down. Are you mad at Slater at 12?
I'm not mad at Slater. I'm mad at Slater with that pick because you have tackles. You have Lane Johnson. You have Jordan Mailata. You have Andre Gill.
What about playing him at guard?
I play him at guard, but sure. But where are you going to put him, though? Isaac Seumalo? You going to bench him? No, he was good last year. Brandon Brooks? I mean, I guess if he gets hurt again. I mean, Rashad Slater is a luxury, but there's so many other needs on this team right now that
Totally agree.
Offensive line isn't the biggest one. So I don't mind him, the player. I think he's going to be a good player. I think Christian Darrisaw is going to be a good player. Just not, there are just other needs.
Yeah, I agree with that. I am out on a lineman, especially at 12. If I trade back, I feel a little differently if you trade back because I add it more to my arsenal. All right, Kwity Paye at 12.
No, I like him, but no. You trade down.
Who is the I'm smarter than you pick?
Oh, man. How much time you got?
No,
Mac trading up for Mac Jones. That is the I am smarter than you pick.
I would kill you if they did that for saying that.
I like Mac Jones, but that is the I am smarter than you pick. It is.
Come on.
He just is. Like, I like Mac Jones a lot, but
Mac Jones.
Justin Fields is on the board. You don't do that.
Mac Jones had 4 first-round wide receivers to throw to. I can't judge him with
Najee Harris too.
Right. I can't. Well,
and a Ringmanton Award winner at center. And a star left tackle. Yeah, right.
It's one thing to say, look, I like what this guy brings to the table. He had 4 first-round pick wide receivers to throw to in 2 seasons. I just can't definitively say I know enough about him. I want to see you throw to what Ole Miss has.
I want to see him throw to what the Eagles have.
I don't
either. I want to see Justin Fields do that, but I'll tell you what, Mike, that's the quarterback, Justin Fields. If there's any quarterback, if they get Justin Fields, I will personally probably come on this YouTube channel and just start going. I'll just be that guy.
All right, so let's take a quick spin. So we obviously know that 1 is going to be Lawrence. That's not changing. 2, we feel like it's going to be Wilson.
I think it'll be Wilson too. Yeah, I think the Jets have their minds made up there. I think that's why the Eagles couldn't trade up. I think they knew the Jets were taking them.
3, it will be Mac Jones.
It should be Justin Fields. It will be Trey Lance.
Wow, there's the deuce right there. A little double curveball.
Right there. It should be. I think Trey Lance is going to be a good fit for them. I really do. But Justin Fields should be the pick. I don't think they can go wrong with Trey Lance, though.
Atlanta does what?
Kyle Pitts.
I like that kid too much, man.
I do too. But I think Atlanta sees it. They're like, man, we got a gold mine here. We're going to get this guy at 4, and we're all excited. And we're just going to load up for Matt Ryan. He's finally going to have a tight. Oh, and Hayden Hurst wasn't bad for them last year either.
As much as I liked the trade for Philly, the one thing that I was like, man, that means you're out on the Pitts.
It takes you out with him and Jamar Chase, and that was the only thing that bugged me about it.
But you're out on Pitts anyway.
Yeah, exactly. He was gone. And I think the Eagles knew that. I really do. I think they were like, look, these two are going to be gone. Let's just reset and we'll try to
report that Roseman heard that Cincinnati was going to take Chase and that's why he got out of that spot.
Yeah, I think that's really what it was. Cincinnati is really strong on Jamar Chase because they want to pair him with Joe Burrow, and they shouldn't do that. But I have a feeling Roseman just doesn't trust them, and he wasn't going to wait till draft night to see, oh, look, let's draft Jamar Chase. Because then, you know what happens then, Mike? Then they're back to where they were when they picked like a Danny Watkins or a J.J. Arcega-Whiteside or a Marcus Smith, and they're stuck. They're legitimately stuck. So I think Howie Roseman said, you know what? Let's just go back down to 12. We'll reset, and we'll let this board play out, and then we'll trade back up. Oh, by the way, we got a first-round pick.
All right, so Cincinnati does what?
Jamar Chase. They should get Penei Sewell, but it's Jamar Chase.
I don't know how they messed that up. I don't know how they messed that up.
I don't know how they messed it up here.
I implore them to not mess this up. Take Penei Sewell.
Yeah, exactly. But I will say this. Who do you think I'm picking the Dolphins to get?
Miami takes Waddle.
I say they take Penei Sewell because they like
good. Look,
they really like him.
In the same spot, they should take Sewell.
Yeah, it's pretty much just a flip-flop, honestly. I think the Dolphins are like, well, we'll get either Penei Sewell or Jamar Chase. We'll get our right tackle because they got Austin Jackson at left tackle. They traded Eric Flowers. They're going to move Robert Hunt in the guard anyway. So why not?
The best case scenario here for what happens is Miami, they take Waddle, and then Detroit finally gets to take the right pick and take Sewell.
I could see that. I think Detroit ultimately does trade down, though. That's what I think is going to happen. I think that Detroit does like one of the Alabama receivers, but they need so much help. I don't think, and they do really need a wide receiver, so they can build that route. But I just think they're going to get an offer they can't refuse at 7, and it's probably going to be for a quarterback.
Charles Rogers, Calvin Johnson. They went wide receiver for about 5 straight years, and none of them can play other than Calvin Johnson. So.
Roy Williams wasn't bad.
Who?
Roy Williams. He wasn't bad.
Yeah, he was okay. He was okay.
Yeah, he was okay. He wasn't worth where he was drafted.
But they didn't win anything with all these receivers they took. I had this conversation with somebody today about last year. Dallas went CeeDee Lamb. Yeah, he's great. But receivers aren't winning. Like, they had good enough receivers. If they took a defensive player last year and got another one this year, now their defense is somewhat respectable.
Yeah, this isn't like the Eagles who desperately need one, and it's not going to make them – look, none of these guys are going to make the Eagles a 10-win football team this year, but it can be a huge building block, and that's what they need. So one of these guys, that's why I'm all for it.
I can't wait till camp starts. We're going to get into that. All right, so Detroit takes what?
Detroit trades down. I don't know who, but if they're not trading down, I say Detroit takes Devonta Smith.
Devonta Smith. All right. That would leave Carolina. Who you got?
I think they go quarterback.
Oh.
I think they go quarterback, and I think they go Mac Jones.
Mac Jones.
I think they go Mac Jones. I think he fits Matt Rule a little bit. I think it's going to be hard for them to pass on Justin Fields. But I think they go Mac Jones.
Jeff Kerr with me, CBS Sports NFL writer. Denver's up. Who do you got?
Justin Fields.
Man, backflips, right?
Yeah. Oh, backflips. John Elway's going to be he really will be dancing in the street. I can't wait to see. If Denver gets Justin Fields, I'm all in on the Broncos, baby.
Now you got Drew Lock, Bridgewater, and Fields.
Justin Fields beats them out easily.
Right. It's going to be a fun training camp.
It's going to be an awesome training camp. I'll tell you what, the AFC West is a fun. I love covering the AFC West. It's so fun.
Poor Bridgewater, though.
Yeah, I do feel bad for him, but what are you going to do? I hate to say it, he's getting paid a lot.
Surtain, Dallas does what?
Dallas gets Surtain.
New York.
Micah Parsons.
Philadelphia.
Jalen Waddle. He's left.
That's it right there. Jalen Waddle.
Yeah. Now, this is what I do think is going to happen. They're going to trade up and they're going to get Devonta Smith. That's what I think is going to happen.
Okay. All right.
Don't hold me to that. Everybody's going to come slam me tomorrow when that doesn't happen. But
do you have any other wild, wacky scenario in your mind that you want to throw out there for the listeners?
Oh, man. Like just a mock trade or anything, or like
anything draft night related that you will, like I said, do not be shocked if the Eagles trade up to 7 and take Fields.
I wouldn't be shocked if that happened. I will say that. You know what? Adam Kaplan knows so much more than me on insides. I always tell people I'm not an insider. I do hear things, but I'm not an insider like he is. But I'll tell you what, Adam's on the ball there. I really would be happy if they would do that, trade up to 7 and get Justin Fields. But this is what I think is going to happen. The Patriots or Chicago or Washington will try to make a big move and move up. That's what I think. One of those three. And I think the Patriots are desperate enough.
One more scenario I want to throw your way. I'm running a little over here, but it's good stuff. So The Patriots call the Packers.
I would. I call them. They need a quarterback. They don't have it.
But do the Packers say, yes, New England, we will give you Aaron Rodgers?
Yes, because he's not in the NFC. You don't have to play him. That's it.
That's the move of the night right there if that happens.
Yeah.
Or Tebow beats out Lawrence because Urban Meyer wants to recreate.
And Tebow's a tight end now. He's not a quarterback anymore. He should have been a tight end 10 years ago. I'm a big Tim Tebow fan, by the way. Not as a quarterback, though. I thought he would have been I think he would have been a fine football player if he would have just moved to H-back or tight end all these years ago.
Yeah, probably. But, hey, look, he's back, 33 years old. He wants to play tight end. Jeff Kerr, back tomorrow. Recaps round 1. Previews round 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You know the drill. Right here, 525 Sports Bash. All right, Jeff.
Thanks, Mike.
There he goes. Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports. Wrap it up, 5 o'clock hour here with the 5 sounds of the day. All right, here we go. 5 sounds of the day. Our favorite sounds from the guests of today's show. All right, I'll bring in my trusty producer there, Josh, who picked these sounds each day. Let's start off with Ryan Roberts, draft expert, said this.
He would be my 5th ranked guy. Looking back on the grades that I did hand out to him, I was a little lukewarm, to be honest, on a guy like Jalen Hurts. I think that he is really sound character, hard worker, very good athlete. I just think it's sort of the issues that I mentioned with Fields. He's a little mechanical. He's not great on timing routes. He's just it seems like his process is a little slow. So I was a little more hesitant just because I think there might be a little bit of a cap on how effective he could be as a passer. But I would definitely prefer him to a guy like a Mac Jones.
That was Ryan Roberts on where he would rank Hurts in this group of guys. So hearing that, would you take a quarterback at 12 or trade up to get one?
I would not take a quarterback. I have been consistent on this, and I will stay consistent on this. And if they do take a quarterback, I will crush them the very moment that it happens. Because to me, you don't trade away Wentz. You don't say we're going to build around Hurts or we're going to go get a backup quarterback like Flacco to be that guy in the room. And then all of a sudden go draft the guy that some analysts think is similar to the guy you're drafting.
The feeling if something crazy happens, we're talking about that tomorrow. That's the crazy thing. I think they'll take Horn at 12 if he's there. I think they'll take Waddle at 12 if Horn's not there and Waddle's there. Rashawn Slater. Those are my top 3 that they will take if they stay at 12. My intuition says they will not pick at 12.
My gut instinct says, as of right now, they're going offensive or defensive line, and everyone's going to be disappointed.
Andy McNamara is going to be live on the video. He's going through the first 10 picks with you. You might be talking about the Eagles pick in there.
We are? Oh, boy.
And Fitzsimmons tonight at 6:20. Great conversation. Joins game night. Have a great night. Draft night.